Today on the Unproduced Table Read, a pair of estranged sisters become entwined in a series of mysterious drownings in Mexico, so don't move a muscle.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unproduced Table Read here on the Popcorn Talk Network. As I mentioned at the top, we're reading kind of a dark, murdery thriller. It's called The Drowning Pool. I think it borrows from a lot of great kind of crazy killer thrillers like Zodiac, Silence of the Lambs, and it's really our first time kind of running something like this on the show, so I'm very excited. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this is a show where we read Hollywood's hottest unproduced pilots and features. Today's feature is called The Drowning Pool. It's written by Colin, McNeil, and Dan Minsky. They're actually Canadian, so we'll be having them call in later after the read. And guys, my name is Jeff Graham. If you want to find me online, you can do so at Jeffrey C. Graham. Before we start the read, I'd love for my cast to introduce themselves and who they'll be playing on the show today.
Hey guys, I'm Roxy Stryer. You can find me everywhere at Roxy Stryer, and I'll be reading for Isabel. And also, I have an awesome line from College Girl Number 1.
Hey, I'm Haley O'Connor, and I am reading Catherine.
Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Guy. You can find me at Andrew Guy, and I will be reading mainly for Decker. There's a couple little tourists and Mexican man in there, but Decker.
What's up, everybody? I'm Timothy Michael. You can find me on all social media platforms at I am Timothy Mike, and today I will be reading Matt, College Guy Number 1, and Malcolm Wilson.
Hi guys, I'm Adrienne Snow. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Adrienne Snow, and I'll be reading for Lieutenant Vargas, Detective Flores, and various other characters.
And I am Lex Michael. I am all over social media at the Lex Michael, and I am playing Liam Burke/Man, Anderson Cooper, Officer Taurus 3, and College Guy 2.
So, guys, as I mentioned, we're reading a feature today called The Drowning Pool. It's definitely a page-turner. I'm really excited to have it on the show today. Written by Colin McNeil and Dan Minsky. We'll get more into their bio as we have them call in later, but they've both kind of worked in unscripted TV producing. So I'm wondering if that has... It's for National Geographic and kind of location-based, so I'm wondering if that... This is a very... The setting is very visceral in this script, so I'm kind of wondering if that had an influence over the way they write, but we'll ask those questions when we actually get them on the line. For now, let's go ahead and start the read, guys. This is The Drowning Pool, written by Colin McNeil and Dan Minsky. Fade in. Close on a woman's face. Underwater. Peaceful, motionless, hair drifting, angelic. Then, a single air bubble defies physics and trickles down from above, along her face and into her mouth. A few more bubbles follow. Eyelashes flutter, cheek muscles twitch. Then, her eyes flare open, wide, ice blue eyes, staring at us. Her mouth starts to stiffen and contort. We are watching her drown in reverse. Bubbles multiply and trail downward into her waiting mouth, struggling, growing stronger. Now terror in her eyes, almost pleading with us to help her, as if we were right in front of her. Feverish, flailing, fighting, her mask a face of bubbles. Her muted underwater screams peak and echo as we fade to... Interior New York apartment night. A Manhattan apartment, ultra-modern, everything in its place. It could be a showroom if not for the telltale signs of life. A TV tuned to the financial news, volume low. A neatly packed suitcase sitting on a bed. The faint sound of running water from the bathroom off the master bedroom. Interior New York apartment bathroom night. A woman showers in a cloud of steam behind frosted glass. This is Catherine Gray. Early 30s, attractive but stern-looking. Her eyes are closed, her face upturned to the stream of water. She rubs her temples, trying to decompress. She shuts off the water and just stands there a few seconds, dripping, staring, lost in thought. As she dries off, she notices her phone on the vanity, buzzing with a new message. She scrolls through them. Congratulations! You nailed it. Out celebrating? Great work, heartless bitch. Lunch when you get back? Interior apartment kitchen continuous. Catherine heats some leftover takeout food in the microwave. She digs through her cupboards and finds an expensive-looking bottle of red wine hidden at the back. She examines the label and uncorks it clumsily and pours herself a glass. Apartment living room night. Catherine works on her laptop late into the night. Silent, solitary, legal files spread nearby. She sips a Diet Coke, leaving her wine untouched. She looks up from her work and her eyes linger on her suitcase now by the front door. Interior apartment bedroom dawn. In bed, Catherine stares at her alarm clock, sleepless. Her eyes turn to a framed photo on the dresser. A happy middle-aged couple, her parents beside a big house.
I haven't seen my sister in over 5 years.
It's about time then, isn't it?
Interior car day. Catherine's riding through New York in a luxury sedan driven by her colleague, Liam, mid-40s, well-dressed and attractive.
Then there's all the work we have coming up.
Stop making excuses and take your vacation, just like everyone else. Anyway, you earned it. You see you made the paper again?
Liam hands her a newspaper folded open on a page. She glances at the headline. Insider trading suit dismissed. There's a picture of the defendants and a small picture of Catherine. The caption reads, Defense Attorney Catherine Gray.
Someone called me a heartless bitch outside the courthouse.
Yeah, but you're a heartless bitch. You should have been out celebrating with us last night.
I had work to do, which reminds me.
Catherine reaches into her shoulder bag for her laptop.
Don't you dare.
We're back in court the day after I get home.
You really don't know how to let up, do you?
This is why you offered to drive me so we could go over...
I offered to drive you because I'm an all-around good guy. Plus, I'm considering this a first date since I can't seem to get you to actually go out with me.
Liam smiles. Catherine puts her laptop away, looks at the newspaper again, yawns, and rubs her eyes.
I keep assholes like that from going to jail and I sleep just fine. I gotta see my sister and suddenly I'm up all night.
Well, just remember to be nice.
Catherine stares at him.
You could try to have fun.
She offers a half smile and turns toward the window.
I don't even like the beach.
Yeah, and I don't like Thanksgiving, but family's important.
Interior airport day. As Catherine shuffles through security, she reads a new email from her phone. From Isabel Gray to Catherine Gray. Is this really happening today? So excited. And nervous, kinda. See you soon. XO is. Interior airplane day. Catherine seated in first class as the airplane taxis. She takes a pill, tosses it back with a sip of bottled water because she's clearly a nervous flyer. She rests her head back and closes her eyes as the engine roars for takeoff. Sequence. An eerie collection of underwater images in the ocean. Swimmers and surfers seen from below. Shadows play along the ocean floor. Deeper. There are some signs of human artifacts and lost items. A piece of rusted jewelry, a worn shoe rolling in a current. We move deeper into the ocean, deeper, darker, faster, as if in a dream or nightmare, until, end sequence, Catherine's startled awake by a flight attendant. The planes come to a stop. She's disoriented. She looks around and is embarrassed to see that she's the last passenger left on the plane. The flight attendant smiles.
Welcome to Mexico.
Interior Cancun Airport continuous. Catherine exits customs with a crowd of other travelers. The airport is chaos, with cab drivers, souvenir sellers, and families all pressing against the arriving passengers. Someone calls out to her, but Catherine doesn't notice. Coming into focus in the crowd is Isabel Gray, attractive, late 20s. She wears a t-shirt, frayed jean shorts, and worn sandals, all in stark contrast to Catherine's neat pressed casual wear. Isabel's bright, confident eyes make her seem prettier than Catherine, and younger, though they're really only a few years apart. Isabel waves frantically.
Catherine? Catherine Gray! Cat!
Kat finally sees her sister and approaches.
Cat, you made it, finally!
Oh my god, Isabel, you look so different. I didn't even...
The sisters hug before pulling back to look at one another. Neither of them knows what to say. A smiling souvenir vendor appears with a garish sombrero.
You're not putting that on my head.
Oh, no gracias, señor. Que tengas un buen día. Gracias.
The souvenir vendor moves on.
You speak Spanish?
Pretty much fluent.
Really?
Isabel nods and smiles. Another awkward silence. Catherine fluffs her shirt in the humidity.
Look at this. I already need a shower.
Isabel happily takes her sister's hand.
Come on.
Interior Jeep day. Isabel drives down a congested road in her beat-up Jeep. Motorcycles whip by. Exhaust flows from trucks. They pass rundown shops and eateries, and Catherine glimpses Mexican police officers manhandling someone down a narrow alley. She's unnerved by the foreign chaos and by Isabel's driving.
It's a lot nicer down near the beach. You'll see.
Exterior Cancun all-inclusive resort day. Isabel pulls up to the valet parking of a beach resort. Tanned bodies stroll to and fro near a pool. Interior Catherine's resort suite afternoon. Catherine and Isabel enter Catherine's room. Isabel rushes to the king-size bed. She flops down on the mattress and reaches for one of the chocolates on the pillow and starts unwrapping it.
Wow, look at this. Luxury.
It's completely different from the photos online, but I guess they feel they can just do that.
Catherine unzips her suitcase and starts hanging up a few things in the closet while Isabel watches her curiously.
So, things are good with you then, Isabel?
Yes, Counselor Gray. If I had to describe things with myself, I'd say they were, good.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sound like that.
You know me. I'm just being a smartass. But seriously, do you have to unpack every single thing you brought this very second?
Catherine stops to look at Isabel.
Let's go out.
Interior beachside Mexican restaurant evening. A bustling open-air restaurant overlooking the Cancun beach. Catherine and Isabel are finishing up a meal. A couple of large margaritas in front of them. Isabel is mid-story.
Then we met each other a second time in Veracruz, and I was traveling with this Aussie guy named Steve. Matt was staying at a nearby hostel, and we recognized each other from Thailand and stayed up all night, again, talking surfing. I told you he used to compete, right? He's amazing. Big sponsors and everything until he hurt his knee.
And what about Steve?
Well, he didn't like to surf.
So you and Matt...
We don't fuck, if that's what you're asking.
I was only...
He's more like a brother now, and it'd be bad for business, right?
Well, I can't wait to see your shop.
I think I'm really starting to get the hang of this whole staying in one place thing.
The bill comes and Catherine grabs it first. Isabel watches as Catherine slips her credit card into the bill fold without checking the total.
So, what about you?
What about me, what?
Catherine's phone buzzes on the table with a new message.
Any men in your life?
Catherine picks up her phone and reads the message distracted.
I date.
Catherine's eyes narrow as she starts typing out a reply to the new message and several seconds pass.
Does it work?
Catherine nods.
Well, I hope they know how lucky they are to have you. You're probably the best lawyer in New York City by now.
Catherine glances up, brushes off the compliment.
Hardly. But it looks like I'll make partner this year.
Partner? At your age, Kat, that's incredible.
Catherine is taken back by her sister's honest enthusiasm and can't help but smile, proudly. A blush. Despite herself. She puts down her phone and eyes her margarita suspiciously.
How much alcohol do they put in these things anyway?
Exterior Cancun streets night. The two girls head down a dingy side street toward a hidden bar. Catherine's tipsy. A few local Mexican men notice them.
Lady, come. Fucking, huh?
Keep walking.
Are you supposed to stick to the tourist areas after dark?
This is the tourist area. Don't worry, I'll protect you, big sis.
Interior bar night. The thumping music in a crowded bar. Catherine's head spins. Faces come out of the crowd. Catherine sees Isabel dancing suggestively with an attractive local man. Catherine tries to appear as carefree as her sister, but she's clearly out of her element. Interior Catherine's resort suite night. The girls burst into Catherine's room, drunk.
And you told her if she didn't give me my money back, you'd sue her ass so hard her children would die in debt.
I actually said that?
In front of my whole class.
Well, she probably had it coming.
I was in grade 6.
The girls laugh drunkenly. Catherine sinks into the chair by the desk, gathering her senses, and Isabel plops on the bed.
Dad always said you were going to be a lawyer.
Catherine is struck by a bout of nausea and heads to the bathroom, looking both sick and embarrassed. The sound of her vomiting startles Isabel.
Are you puking?
Catherine shuts the door for more privacy. The muffled sound of another vomit echoes through the inside of the bathroom. Exterior Cancun beach night. Resort lights sparkle in the middle of the night. Exterior ocean floor night. Beneath the waves, moonlight makes the ocean floor glow. Silent, foreign, like the surface of a distant planet. We move along the bottom eerily, almost mechanically. Interior Catherine's resort suite morning. As daylight streaks in, Catherine opens her eyes. Isabel's arms are wrapped around her, a smile on her sleeping face. Just inches away, Catherine looks at her sister for a long moment, as if she can't quite believe, after so many years, where she is, or who she's with. Interior surf shop, bungalow day. Catherine and Isabel walk through a modest surf shop connected to a small bungalow where Isabel lives. The place is filled with mismatched furniture, surfboards under repair, bathing suits, empty beer cans. Isabel's roommate, Matt, late 20s, dreadlocks, is making coffee, cooking bacon, and listening to loud music. A lit joint dangles from his lips. The atmosphere wreaks havoc on Catherine's hangover.
Long lost sister!
Isabel turns down the music.
You must be Matt.
They shake hands.
Have I heard lots about you?
Uh-oh.
She goes on and on and
Really?
on. Yes, mostly good things, though.
Matt takes a hint and holds the joint out for Catherine.
Mostly.
Matt.
Catherine looks at the joint.
A little early, isn't it?
Nobody's working here today, right? Huh?
Matt offers the joint to Isabel. She shakes her head. Catherine casually starts looking around. She sees a few of Matt's surfing trophies and photos from around the world. Matt gives Isabel a look as if to ask, "How's it going?" Isabel doesn't know how to answer. Catherine's now looking at another framed photo across the room. Isabel walks up behind her. In the photo, we see two little girls, Catherine and Isabel, with their parents. Then another photo on the shelf, two sisters together as teenagers.
You okay?
I haven't seen a picture of us in a long time.
Catherine turns to face her.
I should have come sooner.
Isabel takes Catherine's hand.
Maybe we both need to disappear for a while.
Catherine hardens a bit.
I didn't disappear.
You know what I mean.
Catherine takes her hand away.
You disappeared.
Isabel searches Catherine's face, unsure of what to say.
I was making a life for myself, building a career.
What do you think I'm trying to do here, huh?
Catherine looks at her surroundings, then back to her sister.
Just tell me you didn't spend it all, Isabel. Do you have anything left?
It's none of your business. You should know that. It's mine.
She gestures at a picture from her parents.
From them.
Tears well up in Isabel's eyes.
How do you ladies want your eggs?
The sisters ignore him, staring at one another.
I know we have a lot to talk about, but can we just not argue? Not yet. Please, Kat.
Catherine softens and rubs her temples.
I'm sorry.
Isabel wipes her eyes with the back of her hand.
Well, you're gonna have to make it up to me.
What?
Let me teach you how to surf.
Catherine tries to stay stone-faced, but she can't. She smiles.
No.
Exterior Cancun beach day. Tanned bodies, beach volleyball, water sports. Heat shimmers off the sand and the water. The waves look turquoise blue. Catherine is set up with a recliner and an umbrella from her resort. Matt and Isabel grab their surfboards.
These are small here, Kat. Perfect for learning.
And for watching.
Matt and Isabel head to the waves. The water's filled with tourists. Further out, surfers, windsurfers, paddleboarders. Beyond that, pleasure crafts of all sizes. Catherine repositions her umbrella, making sure no sun is hitting her. She's wearing a bikini, but doesn't take off her shirt or her wrap. She picks up her phone and checks her emails. Exterior underwater day. An unsettling view from the ocean floor. Legs dangle, arms splash, surfboards cut through the shining water. Voices can be heard yelling, distorted beneath the waves. Exterior beach day. Catherine looks up from her emails and she spots Isabel getting up on her board and riding the hell out of a wave. Catherine watches, genuinely impressed. Then, for the first time since arriving, she shuts off her phone, takes a deep breath, leans back in her chair and closes her eyes. Peace. Exterior beach day. Moments later, Catherine's eyes snap back open. There's commotion out on the water. Catherine sits up and looks. Matt's straddling his board, searching the waves, frantic.
Help!
Isabel's surfboard floats upside down. Whistles shriek and a lifeguard dashes by. Catherine gets up and rushes toward the water against the stream of panicked tourists coming out of it.
Somebody's drowning.
I think she was pulled under.
It's a fucking shark, isn't it?
Matt's still out scanning the water, searching, frantic. Catherine gets ankle deep in the water but can go no further. She looks out at the waves, confused, trembling. Exterior beach, afternoon. A helicopter, boats, and divers now scour the shoreline. From a distance, we see Catherine on the beach, pacing, upset. Police officers, resort staff, tourists nearby. Catherine lashes out at a police officer, gesturing at the water, yelling angrily, and Matt tries to calm her. Exterior beach, dusk. It's getting dark. Hours have passed now. Matt, carrying both his and Isabel's surfboard, escorts a silent and stunned Catherine off the deserted beach. Red warning and close signs mark the sand, and a helicopter still flying.
This isn't happening.
She was one of the best swimmers I know, I swear.
Matt grabs the leash on Isabel's surfboard and the Velcro grip dangling open in his hand.
And these fucking things aren't supposed to come off.
He punches the board, knocking it over.
Fuck! She was just there, then she was gone.
Catherine stares at the surfboard and the leash on the ground.
You sure?
Matt looks at her puzzled.
How many of those joints did you smoke before you went out there with my sister?
What?
You heard me.
Hey, wait a minute. You don't know what you're talking about. That has nothing to do with...
Catherine begins walking toward the resort.
Hey, hold on.
I don't need some pothead's account of the events.
Hey, wait.
She continues to walk.
You know what? Go fuck yourself. You know nothing about us.
Catherine keeps going, not looking back.
Who the fuck are you, huh?
Interior Catherine's resort suite, night. Sequence of shots. Catherine sits alone on the edge of her bed, untouched room service in front of her. The TV's on, muted. In stark contrast to her mood, a tabletop display of her desk holds glossy brochures advertising scuba diving, Mayan ruin tours, and Mexican adventures. Smiling tourists having way too much fun. Later, in the middle of the night, she stands at the window looking at the ocean, expressionless. Later still, she's in bed staring at the ceiling. She sees daylight peeking around the blind. Exterior Cancun beach dawn. As the sun rises, Catherine walks along another stretch of Cancun's waterfront, passing hotels and marinas. Exterior beach morning. Catherine returns to her resort. As she approaches along the beach, she notices people setting up umbrellas and laying out towels for the day. The red warning signs and flags are gone. No search boats, as if nothing happened. Interior police station morning. Catherine briskly enters the police station, crowded with other tourists. She goes right to the front of a long line and speaks to the clerk, showing her business card.
I need to talk to this person.
The clerk gestures for her to get in line.
My passport was stolen, lady. Wait your fucking time.
Another sunburned tourist notices her in frustration.
Good luck, I've been here an hour. I already paid the cops at my hotel $500. Talk about corrupt.
While contemplating her options, Catherine spots Lieutenant Vargas, a middle-aged officer who was on the beach the day before. He's crossing the lobby with an armful of takeout food.
Excuse me.
Catherine pushes toward the crowd as Lieutenant Vargas heads for the back offices. He doesn't notice her, or at least he pretends not to. She reaches him just in time to hold the door open for him, her eyes insistent. She needs to talk. Interior, station, offices, day. Police officers unwrap Mexican takeout food at their desks. Catherine sits across from Lieutenant Vargas mid-argument.
What about the person that said she was pulled under?
Well, drunk American tourists make very bad witnesses.
So you call it a surfing accident?
Our lifeguards reported no struggle, no blood in the water. We haven't even had a shark sighting.
So she just vanished. You have no clue what happened out there, but you called off your search and opened the beach anyway?
50,000 tourists here. Now, please.
Tourists? What is this, fucking Jaws? You said you'd keep searching.
Lieutenant Vargas leans across to put his hand on hers, as if to console her in grief and anger.
Please.
Catherine snaps her hand back.
I know you are upset, but accidents can and do occur.
I want to know exactly what happened to my sister.
Oh, we only have so many resources, Miss Gray.
How am I going to get her body back?
Vargas stares at her, unsure of how to answer.
Her sister's body is halfway to Cuba by now.
A couple other officers eating their food laugh.
What did he say?
Lieutenant Vargas gives the officers a reproachful look.
We've done all we can. Depending on the current and tides, there's a chance something might wash up.
Wash up?
This is not easy for any of us.
He stands and extends his hand to her.
I will contact you personally if there are any developments.
Catherine stays sitting while Vargas's hand remains outstretched in midair. The other officers stare.
I'll have a copy of your report.
Lieutenant Vargas nods and sits back down.
Of course.
Catherine waits in the uncomfortable silence, avoiding eye contact with the other officers as Vargas searches his files. Another hushed comment in Spanish by one of the officers. Catherine looks over, glaring. Vargas produces a copy of the report and hands it to her, and Catherine takes it and leaves. Exterior Cancun streets day. Catherine passes a busy restaurant, its patio full of loud, happy tourists with mariachi music playing. She seems to be mariachi music playing. I want to make sure I get that right. She seems to be fighting as hard as she can to keep her emotions in check. She ducks into a quiet alley. She begins to cry, muffling the sounds with her hands, her body racked by deep, mournful sobs. Interior Catherine's resort suite, bathroom morning. Catherine showers, hot water pounding down her face. She turns it off, stands there dripping. Interior Catherine's resort suite morning. A laptop screen. Catherine does an internet search. Cancun drowning. Among the top returned links, American presumed drowned. She opens the link and scans the article. Isabel Gray, American living in Cancun, surf school and repair shop, surfing accident. Catherine's eyes linger on the last two words. She looks at the official police report sitting beside her laptop on the table, all in Spanish. She clicks back to her internet search results. She's about to close the laptop when she notices a few more links down. Wisconsin woman presumed drowned. Curious, Catherine opens it. Family devastated by mysterious drowning. 8-year-old son says mother just vanished. Divers search called off. Ruled an accident. Catherine's eyes trace back to the words just vanished. She opens up her internet search bar again and her fingers hang over the keyboard. She feels compelled to search something but doesn't quite know what. She finally types police corruption Cancun. Her search yields plenty of results. She stares at all the links, exhausted, rubbing her temples, her bloodshot eyes blurring.
I'm so sorry, Catherine.
None of this makes sense.
Interior resort suite morning. Catherine sits on the edge of her bed wrapped in a house coat. She's talking on her phone to her colleague Liam in New York.
It's not supposed to make sense.
Silence on both ends. Interior New York law firm day. Liam's in his office looking out onto Manhattan. Intercut.
Let me call the consulate for you. We'll deal with your sister's affairs and get you back here as soon as possible.
What? No. I'm not just leaving her out there. I can't.
Look, I know what you must be thinking, but...
No, you don't.
What else can you do?
I don't know. Something. I have to do something more than the police.
Catherine glances down. She's holding a business card from the tabletop display in her room. It reads, Explore the ocean, dive charters, boat rentals. Telephone 885-0569.
At least let me fly someone down there for you so you're not alone, a family member, or maybe
She puts down the card and stares out at the ocean.
No, she's my only family.
Exterior outskirts of Cancun day. Outside the tourist zone, a taxi passes cinder block apartments, shanty houses built from scrap wood, and advertising banners. Locals throng the dusty streets. Interior taxi day. Catherine looks hot, tired, and nervous in the back seat.
You sure this is right?
The driver, with bad teeth and crucifixes dangling from the rearview mirror, smiles, nods, and points ahead. Interior Decker's property day. The taxi pulls off a seaside road down a long driveway concealed by years of overgrown trees. We see a rusted mailbox, an address, and the remains of an old sign. Decker's Salvage and Recovery. Another sign, maybe a few years newer. Boat tours, ancient treasures of the Yucatan revealed. And another, small engine repairs. In the yard, broken engines, old boats, and a rusted pickup truck sits by a ramshackle house. A 3-wheeled ATV nearby. Catherine pays the taxi driver with a US $20 bill, then she gives him another 20.
Wait here, please. Just wait.
Catherine gets out and notices a Mexican boy, 8 years old, playing in a rusted boat on a trailer in the yard. As she heads toward the house, an old German shepherd comes barreling off the porch. The dog leaps up, paws on her shirt, nearly knocking her over, and she pushes it down.
Fuck, dog.
Catherine hears giggling, and it's the Mexican boy watching. She shoves the dog away harder. Brushing mud off of her shirt, Catherine heads to the porch. She reaches the screen door and hears something inside. the faint sounds of grunting and squeaking.
Hello?
She looks through the screen door, her eyes adjacent on the shadowy shapes of two people fucking on the couch.
Oh, Jesus.
Inside, the man on top doesn't seem to glance Catherine's way, but the motion and noise don't stop. Catherine marches back down the steps, unsure of what to do. She lingers a moment, then gets back in her taxi and waits. Both the boy and the dog stare, and so does the taxi driver. Catherine looks down and takes out her phone. Soon, a round but pretty Mexican woman exits the house. The woman smiles warmly at Catherine, then gets on the three-wheeled ATV. The boy joins her, climbing on behind. The Mexican woman drives off as Aldo Decker, a rugged, grizzled man in his late 40s, emerges from the house. He's shirtless and has a cigarette hanging from his lips. Decker sizes up Catherine, now getting out of the taxi, but still staring up at the departing ATV.
Barter system.
Catherine turns.
Excuse me?
Decker gestures toward the plume of dust heading down the road.
Given their financial situation, it's a goddamn logical necessity, don't you think? It enriches the community, too. Like, I got a network up and down this stretch of coast now, fixing engines, community.
He ashes his cigarette.
Symbiosis. Understand?
No.
I do some work for Maria there, and she brings me a helping of her sweet seafood paella.
Decker looks at Catherine up and down, as if the way she's dressed, new running shoes, pressed khaki shorts, an expensive shirt, tells him all he needs to know.
And you look like real trouble.
Decker flicks his smoke into the yard, exhales, and heads inside. Interior Decker's home day. A foil cover is pulled off a dish of seafood paella. Decker's at the kitchen counter helping the paella onto a plate. He looks up as the screen door slams. Catherine stands in the entrance, glancing around the sparse dwelling. A worn couch, an old TV. On the floor, a truck engine sits on a tarp, tools and manuals scattered. There's a few frame photos on the wall, Decker as a younger man, diving with salvage teams around the world.
Well, you're clearly not from Banco, Mexico, so what do you want?
Catherine pulls her eyes away from the chaos.
Incredibly, I'd like to hire you.
Yeah. For what?
My sister, she drowned, or...
Fuck me.
Decker slams his spoon down.
I fucking knew it.
Catherine, silent, her eyes wide, staring at him. Decker calms down and picks up the spoon.
Sorry, you want some of this?
Catherine shakes her head.
It happened yesterday. The police called off their search, and I've called a dozen salvage and recovery places today, proper businesses, but they all said they don't look for bodies.
So why come all the way out here?
They say that you will.
Look, I haven't had gas in my boat for almost a year, they tell you that?
Decker reaches for an open beer bottle on the nearby counter. He inspects it for a moment and then drinks.
But they told me you like to drink.
His eyes flash up at hers.
Listen, Miss America, if it's not trapped inside a wreck, looking for a body in the ocean is like chasing a fart in the wind. What you need to do is go home and grieve, or whatever it is that you need to do to go on.
I can't. I know the odds.
Decker shakes his head and takes a bite of food.
You know, you're lucky you don't have to see what your sister looks like after a few days in the pond.
The guy at the marina said your daily rate would be around $400. I'll double that plus gas.
You're really one of those no means yes girls.
We can make it an even 1,000, and I'll double that if we actually find her body.
Decker stops chewing and stares at her.
That's in cash. So you can put it right back into your community, as you call it.
Exterior Decker's boat evening. Decker's boat, the Oblivion, is out on the ocean. It's a mid-sized dive boat with a lot of character. Catherine's wearing a faded life preserver that's too big for her, and she's gripping the edge of the boat a little too tightly. Clearly, water makes her nervous. Decker's dog, Smitty, sleeps on the floor. Decker smokes and gulps coffee as he kills the engine.
The current runs this way from the resort southward. There's a reef right here, and it catches all kinds of stuff. If you're lucky, or unlucky, depending.
Decker zips up his wetsuit and straps on the rest of his dive equipment in silence. He starts a dive clock timer on the boat's dash.
This tells you when I'm coming up. Don't drive away, okay?
Catherine tries to smile politely. Decker plunges overboard. Exterior underwater ocean evening. Decker drops down through the water toward the bottom. In the deep gloom, he turns on a large underwater light. He looks around, taking in his surroundings, contemplative, as if he hasn't been in the water for a long while. His eyes finally narrow as he starts moving along the bottom with his light and his dive bag. Viewed from a distance, as if he's being watched, he's no more than a faint light. A shadowy figure moving slowly along the ocean floor. Exterior Decker's boat evening. As the sky darkens, Catherine watches the time count down on the dive clock. 2 minutes left. Suddenly, a splash. Catherine peeks over the boat edge. Decker removes his mask, spits out his regulator, and smiles.
Scared you?
He hoists the dive bag up, then climbs back on board. He notices Catherine looking intently at the bag.
Nothing but the usual pickings.
He dumps out the contents. Beer bottles, a hotel key, a dangle of thin steel cable, sunglasses, a beaded necklace. Decker cracks a beer and drinks most of it in a single chug. He looks out over the water with a glow on his face. He offers Catherine a beer, but she shakes her head.
I can keep running the grid tomorrow on my own. No need for you to sit out here in the wind, feeling sad.
Catherine's lost in thought, staring at the junk as if each piece of it tells a story. Just not the one she wants. She picks up the necklace, runs her fingers over it for a moment, and she gestures at the tangle of cable.
What's that?
It's salvage wire, used for hauling things out of the water. Bad for fish, just like everything else.
Decker strips off his wetsuit and gives the dog a pat and looks back at Catherine, a hint of sympathy.
You know, if Smitty here was still in his prime, he could help us. Couldn't you, you old shit?
Decker starts putting gear away.
A decomposing body gives off its own gases. A stench rises up from 100 feet down in the well. Cadaver smells like... Wait, sorry. A decomposing body gives off its own gases. Stench rises up from 100 feet down, and, well, cadaver dogs like Smith are trained to smell that brutality on the open water.
Decker kneels and pats Smitty again.
But at his age, it'd take all of drowned Atlantis to get him worked up.
Decker starts sniffing wildly at his dog.
Hey, boy. Hey, you old cocksucker.
Decker suddenly belches out 2 big after-dive burps.
See? Gases.
He sees Catherine's unimpressed. He lights a cigarette and starts the engine.
Heading in.
Interior, resort hallway night. Catherine walks down the hall to her hotel room. Her sister's roommate, Matt, is sitting on the ground with his back to the door, asleep.
Hey.
Catherine nudges him and Matt looks up, startled. He checks his watch.
About time.
Matt stands up, groggy and disheveled. His cheeks are tear stains. He clearly hasn't slept since Isabel's drowned.
They found something.
Catherine stares at him, not wanting to hear the news.
A woman's leg washed up.
What?
Catherine brings her hands to her stomach.
Yeah, I was on my way to check it out and thought, well, maybe you, despite your accusations yesterday, I thought you might want to come.
Matt starts to walk toward the elevator and Catherine remains.
The police called you?
No. I was at this bar we go to and overheard the tourists who found it. Surfers, so the local cops there came and picked it up. Now, are you coming or not? Because it's at least an hour drive away.
Matt continues toward the elevators and pushes the button.
An hour?
They were surfing to Lum. That's like 60 miles south through the jungle. I wanted to go while it was still light, but...
The elevator opens and Matt gets in. Alone in the hallway, Catherine takes a deep breath and follows. Exterior road night. A dark road. No lights. A tunnel through the jungle. Matt's driving Isabel's Jeep. Catherine stares out her window. The faces of a few weather-beaten locals walking around the shoulder of the isolated road appear and disappear.
This morning, I thought she was in the next room. I did. I swear I heard something in there and... Just speed up.
Matt looks up to Catherine. She's still just staring at the passing jungle, ignoring him. Matt shakes his head.
You and her are pretty different, huh?
Can you please just watch the road, okay?
Exterior, Puerto Morales Police Station night. The Jeep pulls up to a small, quiet, rural police building. Hardly any lights, the roar of the ocean nearby. Interior, Puerto Morales Police Station night. Matt and Catherine approach the lone night shift officer. A TV flickers. Amidst official police notices, there's a crucifix and framed drawings of Mayan gods on the wall.
Hi, do you speak English?
Mañana. Talk to the tourist police. Mañana.
Catherine looks up to Matt for an interpretation. Matt ignores her and pulls out his wallet. He pulls out a small stack of pesos and places them on the desk.
Encontraron algo hoy. En la playa aquí. Queremos verlo.
Interior Puerto Morales Police Station storage area night. The officer takes a plastic-lined box out of a large freezer. Catherine stands back. Matt braces himself, lifts the lid, and winces. A decomposing, dark-skinned woman's leg, bloated by water. Matt exhales deeply, somehow almost relieved.
Not her. It's not her.
Catherine steps forward and looks, covering her mouth.
Jesus. This is a shark attack, isn't it?
No, es un tiburón.
An officer replaces the lid and puts the box away.
What did he say?
He said it's not a shark. Chaos.
The officer glances at the drawing of a Mayan god on the wall, then makes the sign of the cross. Following his glare to the strange picture, Catherine rolls her eyes impatiently.
Es un misterio, como los demás.
But it's a mystery like the others.
Others? What others?
The officer swings open the freezer he was about to close. He gestures to 4 identical boxes. Catherine moves for a closer look, but the officer stops her. Determined, she reaches into her bag and pulls out her own wallet. Exterior road night. Matt drives them back down the same jungle-lined road. Catherine's looking at her cell phone, which lights up her face in the dark car. She flips through what appears to be photos. Matt glances nervously at the phone.
I'm just going to say it one last time. I think you should delete the shit out of all of that right now.
I know how to handle the cops.
Not down here, you don't.
Interior Catherine's resort suite night. A laptop screen. Catherine, alone in her hotel suite, begins doing research. Montage. She types phrases like shark attacks, Mexico, Cancun beach safety, tourist accident, riptides. She scans local articles, blogs, web pages. She jots on a notepad, types things into a spreadsheet. We see headlines and snippets from a few stories. Canadian paddleboarder missing. Riptide claims Texan woman. American tourist falls from hotel balcony. Couple feared abducted. Strong currents. Brother of missing man still searching. Tangled in wire. Vanished just 100 feet offshore. No blood in water. Vanished. Montage ends. Catherine wakes disoriented, notepaper scratched, her laptop a mess of open websites as daylight pours in. Interior roadside restaurant day. Close on a photo of a decomposing human hand displayed on a cell phone screen. Then a foot, a bloated arm, a leg. Catherine's sitting in a restaurant with the reporter, early 40s, professional looking. The reporter holds Catherine's phone and winces at the gruesome images. Although Mexican, her English is perfect, hardly a hint of an accent.
How did you get these?
Catherine ignores the question.
There's no news coverage on any of this. No cause.
Well, it's probably the cartels. That's why the cops aren't saying anything. You don't know what it's like down here.
Catherine shows her a bunch of printouts she's made.
That's not all. In the last year, there have been 17 reported drowning incidents along this stretch of coast.
So?
The year before that, there were 7. The year before that, 6. 6 again before that, now 17.
And you're sure about those numbers?
Catherine nods.
And you think people's limbs are actually washing up on shore?
The average number of drownings has tripled and the year isn't up. And most of those bodies haven't been recovered. Nothing. People just vanish. I mean, is anybody doing anything about this? These aren't just accidents.
The reporter looks skeptically at Catherine.
They say it's a bad year for riptides.
Catherine gestures at her phone, still displaying a picture.
That bad?
The reporter looks at the pictures again, but still skeptical.
Do you think the public should know the beaches aren't safe?
She nods and thinks.
All these missing bodies, it's not a coincidence.
Well, what is it?
She sighs.
I don't know.
It would make a better story if you did.
The reporter looks at Catherine closely, as if still assessing her credibility.
I've seen a lot of grieving families get lost down here, you know? Grasping at all kinds of things. They seem to stay here forever, even after they go home.
If you don't want the story, I'll find someone who does.
The reporter considers this.
Look, send me the pictures. No promises.
Exterior underwater day. Decker dives along the ocean bottom. Something catches his eye at the edge of a distant reef. Something dark, foreign-looking. Floating above it, the shape of a human chest with arms spread, waving in the current. He freezes, stares, reluctant to go any closer. Finally, he approaches, and the object turns out to be a rusted-out piece of sheet metal with a disintegrating shirt hooked onto it. Likely been there for years. Decker floats there and takes a deep breath, almost relieved. Exterior Decker's boat day. Decker surfaces and climbs aboard. Catherine's on deck wearing her life jacket. He reports to her with a look, still nothing.
Been 3 days now.
Decker starts stripping off equipment, but seems to be waiting for Catherine to respond.
Like I told you, anything not anchored down is long gone by now.
She's exhausted.
There's no figuring the ocean. She's a bitch. You know that deeper you go, the faster you sink?
Catherine remains silent.
Yeah, I hear you, lady.
Decker starts the engines. Exterior Decker's boat day. Decker's boat rips along the coast. They pass a quiet stretch of shore covered in jungle, high rock cliffs. Decker sees the throttle and turns in toward the shore.
Something you should see here.
Catherine looks like she's about to protest.
Don't get your panties in a twist. This hour's on me.
Interior cenotes day. Decker's boat enters a narrow opening in a cliff face. They're suddenly in another world. It's a massive water cave. Stalactites drip from the high ceiling, and shafts of sunlight illuminate the crystal water.
Incredible.
They're called cenotes, water caves. Hundreds of miles of them.
Decker kills the engine and weighs the anchor.
What are you doing?
The ancient Mayan used to worship in these. They thought they were used as a sacred entrance to the underworld. Imagine being that freaked out, making up things like that.
Decker strips off his shirt and his shoes.
Hey, I still want to go along the shore by the resort again before it gets dark.
Most tourists don't even get this far. Never leave their shit buffets or watered down drinks.
I don't think you heard me.
I heard you fine.
He turns to face her.
Look,
A flash of sympathy crosses Decker's face, then gone.
we're done.
What?
The search. You did what you had to do, I give you that, but there's nothing more.
I'm not done.
Well, I'm not escorting you out any further down your personal rabbit hole.
I have 2 more days until my flight. It's my money. We're done when I say we're done.
Decker steps up onto the side of the boat.
You need to start finding cheaper ways to buy peace of mind.
And you need to stop thinking you know anything about me. Now start the boat.
Decker smiles, then leaps into the water. The boat rocks and Catherine steadies herself. Decker breaks the surface.
Well, if you can't beat them,
He swims around a bit, enjoying the water.
don't be stubborn. I'll even pretend not to look while you're getting in.
He turns his back to the boat, treading water.
I don't swim.
Wise policy. The ocean always wins in the end.
Decker dives underwater, leaving Catherine alone and contemplative in the massive cave. Exterior taxi night. Catherine rides in a taxi through a busy Caribbean night. Tourists, drunks on corners, people lined up at bars. Then she heads out into a darker, quieter stretch of the city. Locals stand in doorways, shadows move down alleys. The taxi pulls up at Isabel and Matt's shop and bungalow. Interior surf shop bungalow day. Catherine sitting in Isabel's bedroom, packing her sister's personal possessions into a cardboard box. There's photos, letters, saved boarding passes, etc. Catherine pauses on a well-worn newspaper article with the headline, 1 year after the tragedy that changed their lives forever, families still pray for answers. Closure.
She never liked talking about it.
Catherine turns to see Matt standing in the doorway.
Well, there's one thing we had in common.
She turns back to her sister's stuff and Matt lingers.
Why show up here? Now, all of a sudden.
Catherine looks back.
She used to be pretty messed up about everything. About how it was with you two. Then a few weeks ago I hear you're coming and, well...
Matt looks around Isabel's empty room.
Here we are.
Here I am.
So why now?
Catherine looks like she's going to cry, but she chokes it back.
I don't know.
Unwilling to press the matter, Matt leaves the room.
Like I said, let me know if you need any help.
Alone again, Catherine picks up some photos and flips through them. Isabel in Thailand, backpacking, laughing. Matt and Isabel standing on a surfboard together on the sand, pretending they're surfing. Isabel and another girl flashing a couple of police officers somewhere in South America. Catherine stifles a laugh at her sister's free spirit. Exterior ocean night. A quiet moonlit night on the ocean. The lights of resorts sparkle. It's paradise. A small yacht is anchored near a large floating buoy. The sound of laughter floats across the water. Exterior yacht night. A group of 6 college kids, guys and girls, are laughing, drinking, and stripping down to swimsuits. Sets of snorkeling gear and flashlights are being passed around. One kid looks apprehensively over the edge into the dark water.
I don't know about this.
Pussy.
College girl number 1 pushes them aside.
Out of my fucking way, I want to see these fucking things.
She jumps in. Everyone cheers her on and others follow. You were too good at that, Roxy. Exterior underwater night. Holding their breath, the young divers kick their way toward the bottom. An awesome sight materializes, lit by their beams. The Cancun Underwater Museum. Underwater rock sculptures on the ocean floor. A massive stone head, a Mayan warrior. Other ancient-looking stone sculptures flash into view. Exterior ocean night. The kids break the surface one by one.
Fuck! It's super freaky down there.
Exterior underwater night. The flashlights return, waving in and out of the sculptures. We see them underwater from a distance, as if something watching them from the dark abyss beyond their flashlights. Exterior yacht night. Surfacing, the divers climb on board the yacht, talking loudly, cracking beers. One guy pushes his girlfriend overboard. The other 2 girls counter by pushing him in. Exterior underwater night. Viewed from the sculptures below, the boat's lights form a glowing ring on the surface. One by one, the jumping bodies create white cyclones of bubbles as they hit the water. Exterior yacht night. Back on deck, college girl number 2 pounds back the rest of her beer, then saunters to the edge of the boat. She raises her hands over her head, and her boyfriend records it on his phone.
All right, everyone. Here's a 9.9.
She dives expertly into the black water, barely a splash. Her friends applaud, hooting and hollering. But as seconds go by, she doesn't surface. The laughter bleeds away, then silence.
What the fuck?
Rising panic. One girl starts to scream. Interior Catherine's resort suite dawn. The bedside phone rings. Catherine, half asleep, answers.
Hello?
I thought you want to know there's been another one.
Exterior ocean shore dawn. Catherine arrives by taxis to a stretch of shore. The group of college kids are nearby. Some are sobbing, others are in shock. The reporter's also there. She's looking through a small pair of binoculars. She notices Catherine's approach.
They were diving out by the sculptures. A girl went in and she didn't come back.
They find her body?
The reporter shakes her head no.
Police say alcohol was involved.
Catherine stares up at the ocean, and we see a couple of Coast Guard boats running a grid. A helicopter has just arrived. Further out, a few yachts and dive boats are anchored.
What did the kids say?
Just disappeared. Got it all on video. Not that it shows anything. Anyway, I looked at all your numbers, and I know a producer at CNN who will run with the story. They love this dangerous Mexico stuff. When's your flight home?
Tomorrow.
It would be great if I could get you on camera.
Catherine nods. She looks out at the water, at the search, then at the boats, anchored further out. Catherine gestures at the reporter's binoculars.
Can I see those a second?
She hands them over. Catherine looks through the binoculars at the police search. She then pans to a tourist boat further out. On board, she sees an older couple watching through their own binoculars. She pans to another boat. Quiet, no sign of life. Then a third boat further out. A scuba diver in the water beside the boat. He climbs on board out of Catherine's view. Exterior third boat day. The scuba diver arrives on the deck of the boat. We don't see his face as he removes his tanks and sets them down. There's a diver propulsion device slung off the side of the boat. The scuba diver heads into the boat's cabin, passing a picture of a Mayan god on the cabin deck wall. Then the sound of engines firing up. Exterior ocean shore dawn. Catherine puts the binoculars down, deep in thought. She looks at the college kids on shore, one of whom is taking video of the search with his phone. She looks back out at the boats, and the third boat is now roaring away. Exterior resort day. Back at her resort, Catherine heads to the pool area. She's looking for something. She spots a security camera trained on the pool, and she spots 2 other security cameras pointing out toward the beach, right at the water where Isabel drowned. Interior hotel security office day. Catherine's in the hotel security office talking to a young Mexican security guard who speaks in broken English.
We keep for 30 days, then erase. All I know for police only.
Then let me watch the footage here.
It's a new job for me. I will get in trouble.
Can't you just bring it up on one of these machines, please?
The security officer looks sympathetic, but doesn't budge. Catherine takes out her wallet to offer a bribe. The guard shakes his head and gestures for her to put it away. Catherine's flustered, embarrassed.
At least tell me if you can see her on the tape. Can you see what happened?
I didn't see. No watch.
Yeah, of course you didn't. It wasn't your sister who disappeared out there, was it?
She exits and slams the door behind her. Interior hotel bar evening. Close in the TV. CNN. Pictures of Isabel and the college girl from the yacht are on the TV screen. Then a map indicating where all 18 of this year's drowning incidents took place.
An annual drowning total of at least 18 along the Mayan Riviera. Only 7 of the victims' bodies were retrieved, begging the question, which we're asking a lot these days, are we safe if we choose to spend our vacations in Mexico?
Hotel bar. Lex, you have a future in reporting, if that. Catherine watches her laptop and half-eaten meal in front of her. Other staff members and tourists are gathered. Back on the TV.
Our local correspondent spoke with Catherine Gray, sister of Isabel Gray, who drowned 6 days ago.
My sister was a very strong swimmer and an experienced surfer.
Quick edit to later in the conversation.
If it can happen to her, it can happen to anyone.
Hotel bar. Catherine looks upset that this is all they showed of what she had to say. She glances around. Others in the bar are looking back at her, but they avoid her gaze and look back to the TV. Back on the TV, the local Cancun police chief is on screen now.
Accidents happen with so many tourists. As far as the numbers go, there are bad years and good years. It's always been this way. This year we had a very strong currents, undertows, riptides.
Catherine shakes her head at the spin of the story.
Swimmers need to know their limits, especially in the ocean.
What about the human remains that have been washing up on the coast? Catherine's interest perks again. The TV shows a couple of blurred photos of several limbs.
That is an entirely separate investigation, and a confidential one. And we'll be looking into how these pictures were made public. But I can say, based on factors like age, race, and gender, we know that none of these limbs you show match any of our drowning victims. There is no relation whatsoever. They may even have come from very far away.
Catherine looks stunned that there's no connection.
This whole business of washed-up limbs is similar to a story we covered a few years ago when several unidentified human feet washed up in the Pacific Northwest. Oh. Forensic scientist Malcolm Wilson was part of that investigation. You've seen these photos from Mexico. What do you make of this?
Like the limbs we investigated, they look naturally disarticulated, separated through decomposition. Body parts can last years in the ocean, could even come from a shipwreck 2,000 miles away. Everyone likes a mystery, but it's much more likely it's just the ocean giving back its dead.
Truly fascinating stuff.
Catherine looks defeated. Interior hotel bar night. Catherine's talking to Liam on the phone.
You gave them the pictures?
I took them myself.
Interior Liam's house night. Liam's in his Manhattan apartment, CNN muted on TV. Intercut.
Jesus, what were you thinking?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's illegal, even down there.
Catherine doesn't respond.
Catherine! Come on, think! The partners are not gonna like bailing you out of a Mexican jail.
The news story was a whitewash.
Really? Says who? You want to tell me what's really going on?
She exhales, rubs her eyes, full of self-doubt.
You wouldn't believe some of the things going through my head.
Try me.
Maybe I am going crazy.
His tone softens.
I'm gonna pick you up at the airport myself tomorrow. We'll get you home and you'll feel better after a night in your own bed.
Maybe you're right.
Try to get some rest and go straight to the airport in the morning.
I'll be fine.
Catherine hangs up. A new email reminds her that her flight home is in 12 hours. Interior Catherine's suite night. Catherine enters her room, visibly tipsy. She accidentally kicks something on the ground. A plain brown envelope has been slid under her door. She sets down her shoulder bag and picks up the envelope. She's about to open it when there's a sharp knock at the door. She looks through the peephole, then opens it.
What is it?
Miss Gray,
Lieutenant Vargas from the police station enters. Catherine, surprised, steps aside to let him pass. He opens the door and looks around.
I've never been in the rooms here. They are very nice.
He turns back to face Catherine.
I'm not sure about New York, but here, giving police property to the press is a big mistake.
You need to leave now.
He comes closer.
Well, people I work with are upset.
Catherine tries for the door handle, but Vargas grabs her wrist. He raises a finger to her face with his other hand.
But I said Miss Gray is a woman who can be reasoned with.
If you don't leave, I swear.
Vargas touches Catherine's hair gently with one finger.
I can be very helpful.
Then he touches her lips. Catherine suddenly slaps Vargas as hard as she can. He's startled and staggers back. Catherine's startled as well, surprised by her own actions. Seeing his eyes cloud with anger, she tries to de-escalate.
Look, wait, let's think about...
Vargas lands a sharp backhand. Catherine spun around and falls. Clutching her cheek, she scampers backwards. Vargas follows and reaches down, grabbing a handful of Catherine's hair, forcing her onto the bed. Catherine struggles. Vargas gets on top of her. She tries to scream, but he has his hand over her mouth. But Catherine has her hand on the bedside lamp. There's a spark of electricity as she yanks the cord out of the wall and smashes the lamp into Vargas's face. Vargas falls back, hands to his face, blood between his fingers. He gets up, lunging at her, but stumbles onto the floor, disoriented and in pain. Catherine grabs her shoulder bag, purse, and the brown envelope before rushing out into the hall, leaving the rest of her belongings behind. Interior hotel stairwell night. She barrels down a concrete inner stairwell, several flights before stopping to catch her breath. She stares at her hand, cut and bleeding from the shattered lamp. Interior hotel lobby night. Crossing the lobby, Catherine can see a parked police car outside. She walks down another hall toward a back exit. Interior taxi night. Catherine gets into a cab.
Another hotel, please, near the airport.
Exterior Casa El Dorado night. The taxi pulls up to a weather-beaten hotel in an industrial area near the airport. Catherine gets out. She looks up to see Matt's cell phone number on her phone and calls it. As it starts to ring, she heads in the hotel. Interior Casa El Dorado room night. Catherine looks out of the window of her modest room. Nothing but a group of locals in the parking lot hanging around, talking loudly, drinking beer, so she shuts the blinds. She sits on the bed, still rattled, a makeshift bandage now on her hand. Something occurs to her, and she reaches into her shoulder bag. She pulls out the brown envelope left for her at the resort, and she opens it. Inside there's a burned DVD, unlabeled, and a brief handwritten note. I have sister too. Catherine pulls her laptop out and loads up the DVD. A grainy image of the beach and the water. It's a copy of the security camera footage from her resort. The time and date stamps show it's from the day Isabel drowned. Catherine scans the footage forward until she can clearly make out Matt and Isabel among the other surfers. Catherine's lost in thought, watching her sister surf. She notices a few of the boats anchored further out. She pauses the footage, staring at one of the boats. She pushes play again. On the screen, Isabel finishes a glorious run. She flips over the wave and rests easily on her surfboard in control. Seconds later, while relaxing between waves, Isabel is violently yanked off of her board, disappearing underwater in a flash. Catherine gasps. She rewinds it and watches it again, zooming in and playing it. She pauses it, zoomed in. Just before her sister goes under, there's a shadow near her surfboard. Something in the water, coming out of the water and grabbing her. She plays it over and over, looking at the shape of the shadow as it breaks the surface. She then zooms out and zooms in again on one of the boats in the background. It's similar to the third boat she saw through binoculars where the college kid went missing. She stares, shaking her head a bit as if she can't quite believe what she's considering. Interior Casa El Dorado computer cubicle morning. Catherine's in the hotel's small, outdated business office. She stands by a printer as an image prints out. She looks at her phone and it's 6 a.m. Exterior beach morning. Catherine gets out of the taxi and approaches a marina. We see her from a distance talking to a worker there, showing him the printout. He shrugs and goes back to work. Exterior marinas various morning. Catherine shows the printout to more workers at different marinas. They listen and look unable to help her. The sun's getting hot, so Catherine checks her phone. It's 10 a.m. Interior taxi day. Back in the taxi, her phone buzzes. An email notification tells her that she can now check in for her flight home. She puts her phone away and stares out the taxi window at the beach. Then, between buildings, Catherine notices a small stop-and-go marina with a convenience store. Boats are moored and gassing up.
Wait, stop here.
Exterior stop-and-go marina day. Catherine gets out of her taxi and focuses on one of the boats at the small end of the dock. An average-sized boat with a raised cockpit and an antenna protruding from the bow. She pulls the printout from her purse and takes a good look. Exterior stop-and-go marina dock day. Catherine marches down the dock past other boats straight toward the boat in question. It has no markings and no names, and no one seems to be aboard. In the back of the boat, there's expensive-looking dive equipment. A diver propulsion device hangs off the side like a lifeboat. There's a large spool of thick salvage wire, like the wire Decker found in the ocean earlier. Catherine looks up at the dock again, and there's nobody coming. She looks at the chasm of water between the dock and the loosely moored boat, a good few feet. She braces herself and steps across. She peers through the windows into a large below-deck cabin. A laptop sits on a desk. A USB cable running out of the computer is plugged into a dive mask with a built-in camera. There's a framed picture of a Mayan god hanging on the wall. As if in a trance, Catherine tries the cabin door. It opens. Interior dive boat day. Catherine approaches the desk. Amidst a day planner and other papers, she notices an art gallery postcard bearing the image of an ancient-looking stone mask, the face of the mask frozen in a scream. There's a phone number jotted on it and a handwritten note. Opening, December 6th, 7 p.m. Glancing back out of the window, Catherine flips open the laptop hooked into the dive mask with the camera. A folder's open on screen with dozens of video files sorted by date. One for almost every day, going back months. She clicks on a specific recent date, November 29th. She sees murky underwater footage and scans through it. The footage gets brighter as the diver moves closer to the surface. We start to see the motion of surfers. Then closer, beneath a few surfers, bearing down on one surfboard in particular, the limbs of a young woman dangle. Catherine's eyes widened. Then there's a noise from above. Catherine nearly screams as the boat shifts. She snaps the laptop shut. Footsteps on the boat deck above her. She crouches down, listening, staring at the cabin door, waiting, but it doesn't open. The engines fire up. No time to second guess. She unplugs the dive mask from the computer and shoves it into her purse, USB cable and all. The boat starts to move. Fighting panic, she runs to the door and steps onto the deck. Above her, in the high cockpit, she sees the leg of the driver, a tall, middle-aged man, looking ahead, out to sea. Catherine's in plain view should he turn around. She hesitates, the dock fading away, and she has to decide. So she leaps overboard. Exterior ocean day. Catherine thrashes underwater. When she finally breaks the surface, she looks back. The boat's still moving, but not turning around. She's a passable but very fearful swimmer. She gasps and coughs as she pulls herself frantically toward the dock. Exterior stop-and-go marina day. Catherine's helped out of the water by a few fishermen. Gasping for air barefoot, she runs up toward the store. She pulls out her soaked cell phone, and of course it's dead. She grabs a payphone by the store and hangs off it in exhaustion. She reaches into her purse, still slung across her body, produces a wet piece of paper and some change. Reading a number off the paper, she places a phone call. Exterior Decker's house day. Decker is drinking a beer, staring at the engine in the middle of his living room floor, and his phone rings. He answers.
Hola.
Intercut.
It's a man.
You again. Look, I told you.
Shut up, listen. It's a man, not sharks, not a riptide, not a goddamn trend. I saw...
Okay, calm down.
Interior Decker's truck day. Catherine's in Decker's truck as he drives down the coastal road. Decker has no shirt on and a cigarette in his lips. He's looking at Catherine in disbelief.
The boat, I recognized it. It was at both places. I saw it where my sister drowned, where that girl went off the yacht, too.
You sound batshit crazy.
Catherine gestures to the dive camera.
When you see the footage, you'll understand. And the security tape. I have to get my laptop.
So... let me get this straight. You actually broke onto a stranger's boat and stole some of their shit? I'm impressed. You used to be all fucking respectable like.
This son of a bitch takes videos. I think I saw my sister.
Decker stares at her, genuinely concerned. Exterior Casa El Dorado day. Decker's truck pulls up out front of the hotel Catherine stayed in the night before. She jumps out and heads inside. Interior Casa El Dorado hallway day. Catherine heads down the hallway toward her room. As she puts the pass card in the door, a hidden figure emerges from a nearby alcove. Catherine's startled, but sees it's just Matt.
Oh, you scared me.
Shut up.
I guess you got my message.
Matt approaches, trying to stay calm, his cell phone in his hand.
There are cops with drug dogs at my place right now.
Shit.
Yes, shit. It's about those pictures, right?
Catherine's silent.
Fuck. I fucking told you.
Listen.
I know you think you got me pegged. Like, who cares if I lose my home, my business? I got no future anyway, right? Well, I got you figured out too, 1%, and that means I'm not just gonna let you ruin my life like you ruined...
I know what happened to Isabel.
Matt stares at her silently. Exterior Decker's property day. Matt and Isabel's Jeep is parked along Decker's truck. Interior Decker's house living room day. Catherine's at her laptop, the dive mask hooked up. Matt and Decker look on. Catherine scrolls furiously through video files. All the footage is similar. A long, dull account of someone exploring the ocean floor, occasionally stopping to examine something. No swimmers, just sand, rocks, and fish.
No, this isn't it.
She scans further ahead, and we see a pair of hands in the footage, picking away at what looks like a piece of ancient clay on the bottom, putting it into the dive bag.
Riveting.
Decker heads to the kitchen and cracks a beer.
This can't be all there is.
Matt also paces off across the room.
I'm going to jail. In Mexico.
I know what I saw.
Not that they'll find much at our place.
It was on his hard
Except
drive.
for all the coke they planned.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Catherine loads up the security DVD from her hotel.
Here, look at this.
Do I have to?
She gestures to the screen.
Just watch.
Decker and Matt reluctantly come back over. On the laptop, the DVD is zoomed right in, and we see Isabel get pulled under.
What the fuck?
Catherine plays the moment again, then pauses as the blurred object seems to grab Isabel's ankle. Even Decker's a bit surprised by what he's seeing, at first.
What is that?
It's a hand.
A hand?
What then?
Not a goddamn hand.
Fuck, doesn't really look like a shark though, does it?
Sorry, who the fuck are you again?
I know what I saw.
No, you don't. What you're suggesting is impossible.
Decker gestures to the security footage.
No man could do that.
Catherine brings up a window on her laptop. We see photos of the recently drowned tourists that she's cut and pasted into a document. She scrolls through it.
11 drowning victims this year whose remains were never recovered. No trace, no blood in the water. 8 of those were young white women.
Matt stares at the document transfixed.
Where did you get all this?
Catherine stands and Matt sits down at the laptop to scroll through her research. Catherine approaches Decker.
We have to do something. The police have no idea.
We have to do something? Look, I bet you haven't had a clear thought since your sister went under. Right now, you need to stop.
Someone is
right
dragging
now.
people under the water. Now, come on. How would someone do that? Why would someone do that?
Look, your hippie friend's right about one thing. The cops here can pretty much charge you two with whatever they want.
There are no crime scenes, no witnesses. I mean, where are all the bodies?
Matt leans back from the laptop, lost in thought. He runs his hands through his hair.
You should have taken that flight home.
What we really need to do is find that boat again.
Exactly.
Jesus, I told you, the dead make people crazy.
Catherine approaches Decker.
I know what it looks like. I just need a ride, please.
Decker stares at Catherine silently.
This was no surfing accident or shark attack. We need to find this guy.
Decker shakes his head and downs his beer, sighing.
Looking for the living costs extra.
Exterior stop-and-go marina day. Decker fills his boat with gas while Matt and Catherine talk to a local worker at the stop-and-go marina where Catherine first saw the boat. He shakes his head, unable to help him. Exterior Decker's boat evening. Decker pilots his boat chain-smoking. Matt and Catherine use a small pair of binoculars to scan all the ships on the horizon.
It'll be dark in about an hour.
It has to be somewhere.
Boats from up and down this whole coast get gas at that place.
She's lost in thought.
Foreign boats, too. Probably a tourist, a treasure hunter, someone that's gonna leave.
This triggers something for Catherine.
I saw something else on the boat. He had written on it.
Decker continues his thought.
Looking for something to put on his mantle back home.
Postcard from an art
Could
gallery.
even be on his way home, back to the States.
A
Who
face,
knows?
a stone mask.
Exterior Decker's house night. Laptop screen. Laptop screen. Catherine searches the internet for art galleries in Cancun. A page of images shows up, and then another. One of the images is this same stone sculpture of a Mayan god she saw on the boat. She clicks the link. The Bacab Gallery.
That's it for sure.
Matt steps in beside her and looks.
I know that place. That's not far from here.
The front door bangs open and they both look up as Decker returns with a bag of groceries and some booze. He's a little drunk and agitated.
Well,
He tosses a Spanish language newspaper on the table.
you banditos got your very own wanted poster.
Near the bottom of the front page, there's a grainy photo of Catherine and Matt. It's a frame from the security camera footage at the remote police station where they saw the limbs. A headline, La Policía busca a dos turistas. Police searching for 2 tourists.
Bribing an official, stealing evidence, drug charges, assaulting an officer. Have I missed anything?
Matt and Catherine look up from the article.
You can stay here tonight, but that's fucking it.
What, you want more money?
Sorry, kid, but I can't drink myself to death if I'm in jail.
So it's all just about you?
Matt.
Or what? You really don't believe anything's going on here?
Matt.
What?
It's his house.
Matt gives Decker a last look, then walks out to the porch, the screen door slamming behind him. Catherine looks to Decker, who carries on with his groceries.
Sorry, but no more boat tours either. I don't need this shit.
Interior Liam's office night. Liam's at his desk in the New York law firm working late.
I've been trying to call for hours.
My phone died. I'm using my sister's cell.
Exterior Decker's house deck night. Catherine's out on the deck using her sister's phone. Across the yard, she can see Matt sitting alone by the water. Intercut Liam and Catherine.
I went to meet your flight, called your resort. I called the police. They say there's a goddamn arrest warrant out for you. Where are you?
I'm safe.
You need to go to the consulate. Now. I have the address right
I
here.
have to do something first.
Have you lost your fucking mind?
Liam.
You have a career. You're a fucking superstar. You don't throw that away to play Nancy Drew in Mexico.
I just need a little more time.
We're supposed to be in court tomorrow. You should have found a way to be here, Catherine. This whole thing is a big mistake.
Catherine stares at the phone in her hand. Liam's still talking, barely audible, and she hangs up. Exterior Cancun Beach dawn. The sun rises over this resort city. Interior Decker's house morning. Decker watches out the kitchen window as Catherine and Matt get in the Jeep and take off. He looks at a pile of American bills. a few $1,000s worth on the counter. He snatches up the bills and sticks them in a drawer. Interior Jeep day. Matt drives down a busy shop-lined street. Catherine's in the passenger seat. Matt pulls up to the curb and parks. They both open their doors.
I think you should wait here.
Matt looks at her.
Best if we aren't seen together, right?
Matt nods and swings his door shut. Interior Bacab Gallery day. An eerie painting of a mythological beast in the ocean. Another of a mythical Greek woman, sirens, who were thought to lure sailors to their deaths. On a large pedestal, a group of small stone figurines in a perfect circle, holding hands, all looking outward. A placard on the wall bears the image of the stone Mayan god, and a title, Bacab Gallery, Oceans, Mythology, and Art. Catherine walks through the gallery. Aside from a worker on a ladder adjusting lighting, and a woman at her desk in a glass-walled office, she's alone. Catherine looks around. On the walls, there are plaques describing each collection, along with photos and write-ups on each collector or artist. She moves from one collection to the next, taking them in. Catherine eventually pauses at one of the information plaques beside a collection of water-aged Mayan sculptures. The collection is titled A Modern Myth. The collector is a man named Benjamin Burke. A photo shows Burke, a middle-aged American with a welcoming smile, standing on a dock with one hand on his boat. Catherine gasps. Most of the boat is out of frame, but Catherine recognizes it clearly. She reads the write-up beneath the photo. We catch glimpses of text as she reads. Benjamin Burke, Ph.D. in anthropology from Berkeley. Avid diver and art collector. Philanthropist, generous supporter of the arts. Calls Cancun his home away from home. The sound of clacking heels as the gallery manager approaches.
Can I help you? We're not actually open.
Yes, are you the manager here?
Yes.
Catherine gestures to the exhibit.
Do you know Ben?
Well, Mr. Burke, of course. This whole exhibit would never have been possible without his support.
Oh, he's got a history of generosity.
You're a friend of his?
I researched for him for 2 semesters at Berkeley. Anthropology. Don't ask me how long ago now. I was in awe of him. The whole department was. Does he stop by here often?
Well, Mr. Burke spends most of his time on his boat, but he's speaking at the exhibit's opening this Friday. You should come say hello.
I'm flying home tonight.
Oh, that's too bad.
Catherine walks toward the exhibit, looking at the pieces.
I don't suppose there's any way I could reach him before I leave?
Oh, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to give out his personal information.
Catherine stops in front of the 5 stone masks. The gallery manager steps in behind her.
Mayan death masks. Very rare. The Mayans were obsessed with that moment between life and death. They believed you could glimpse the afterlife in the faces of those who were passing over. At 5, it's the largest personal collection that we know of. Mr. Burke found them all himself.
Catherine stares at them, thinking.
Amazing. I can't believe I'm going to miss my chance to see him. Does he keep his boat around here? Maybe I can stroll by and get lucky.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have no idea where he keeps his boat.
I guess I should at least leave him a message. Would that be all right?
Of course. Can I get you something to write on?
Please.
The gallery manager heads back to her office. She's visible through her glass, grabbing a notepad and pen. Seeing the manager isn't looking, Catherine puts her hand on a pedestal holding one of the stone masks. Then she pushes it over. The mask hits the floor and shatters. The manager's head snaps up and Catherine feigns shock.
Oh my god.
The manager briskly approaches.
I'm so sorry. I turn around and oh my god, I can't believe.
The manager stares at the broken mask, speechless.
I don't know what. I just.
Wait, right here. Don't move.
Of course, I'm so sorry.
Just wait.
Catherine nods. The gallery manager hurries back to her office, grabs the phone, staring at Catherine. She finds a phone number, then dials it. When she looks up again, Catherine is gone. Interior Jeep day. Matt watches as Catherine runs toward the Jeep and jumps in.
Go.
What'd you do?
Took a calculated risk. Now drive. Go around the block.
He's surprised by her sudden burst of adrenaline. He rams the Jeep in gear and they take off. Interior Isabel's Jeep day. Catherine and Matt sit in Isabel's Jeep, now parked a good block from the gallery. Catherine looks through the binoculars she was using on the boat the day before. We see 2 police officers arrive and enter the gallery.
There's the police.
Matt stares at her.
Do this kind of stuff often?
Never.
Still, I take it back. You're more like your sister than I thought.
Later, a good hour has passed. Matt's asleep in the Jeep, and Catherine looks through the binoculars again. An SUV pulls up to the gallery. A familiar-looking middle-aged man, Benjamin Burke, late 40s, fit-looking, exits the SUV and heads inside.
It's him.
Matt stirs awake, but Burke's already inside.
That black SUV.
Later, through the binoculars again, we see Burke exit the gallery and then get back into his SUV, slamming the door.
Let's go.
Exterior Coastal Highway day. Matt and Catherine follow as Burke heads south, the urban sprawl getting lighter. Then onto a quieter coastal road, the traffic thinner, the ocean visible on one side. Interior Isabel's Jeep day. Matt and Catherine see Burke's SUV turn off the coastal highway onto a small access road leading toward the water. A sign reads, Marina Paraíso.
Park up here on the road.
Exterior marina day. Catherine and Matt walk down the turnoff, almost to the marina parking lot. They can see Burke uses a pass card to go through a security gate. He passes as a security guard just inside the fence who nods at him. Burke heads down wooden stairs toward the decks below. Dozens of luxury boats are moored.
A lot of money down there.
Catherine reaches into her purse and gets out a small pair of binoculars she was using on Decker's boat the day before. She watches Burke get on his boat and disappear below deck. It's the same boat we saw the video footage on. Matt and Catherine wait. Eventually, Burke reappears. He starts the engine, unties the mooring ropes, and pulls away. Exterior coastal road day. The moving boat is glimpsed from shore through gaps between buildings and trees. Matt and Catherine drive along the coastal highway, keeping it just in sight. They lose it from time to time as clusters of jungle and beach resorts briefly block their view, but Catherine finds it again through the binoculars. Eventually, the road they're on turns away from the shore and rises a few hundred feet above sea level. Thick jungle lines the road. They can't see the ocean at all.
That's it. At least 5 or 6 miles till we see the water again.
Pull over. Park. Right here.
Matt parks. Catherine tosses the binoculars into her shoulder bag, and they hop off. Exterior cliff path day. Matt and Catherine emerge from a tree-lined path onto a clearing over a cliff face. They're high above the ocean. They can see Burke's boat on the water, further down the coastline, stationary now. They walk carefully along the cliff top. Exterior cliff face day. Catherine and Matt are now lined up with Burke's boat, anchored 500 yards offshore. Through binoculars, Catherine spots Burke on deck, dressed in diving equipment. He's lowering an underwater propulsion device into the water along with a dive bag filled with various equipment.
He's going in.
Burke drops into the ocean beside the boat and disappears. Catherine puts the binoculars down and stares at the boat for a moment. Matt picks them up and looks. Catherine gets up and scans the coastline. Nothing but wilderness in this stretch. She looks out at the boat and something occurs to her. She walks to the edge of the cliff. She can't see straight down. She climbs onto a rocky surface a little lower that juts out. She looks straight now. Coming into view, a secluded white sandy beach lined with tourists.
Shit.
Catherine gestures to Matt for the binoculars.
Give me those.
Matt drops down beside her and hands them over. She scopes the tourists below. She pans to some of them playing in the water. Then she pans across the water several hundred yards back out to Burke's boat. She pans back quickly to the beach below just in time to see an underwater shadow materializing as it moves into shallower water 100 feet off the shore, heading toward the beach.
Oh, no.
What?
It's happening.
Catherine cups her hands and screams down at the beach as loud as she can from the lofty wind and cliff face.
Hey!
Snapping the binoculars off to her face, she sees the tourists still frolicking, oblivious to her calls, way too far down.
Is there no way down from here?
She looks through the binoculars again. The shadow glides closer and closer to the beach. Catherine sweeps the water, checking out isolated tourists. She picks up the shadow again underwater, moving along only a dozen yards or so from the deepest bathers.
We have to do something.
Matt gets out his cell phone and starts recording video. Catherine sees the shadow pass under the swimmers. Then it's gone. Catherine's view moves from swimmer to swimmer, waiting to see one get pulled into the water. She scans the waves, nothing. Suddenly, she picks up Burke's shadow once again, this time heading back into deeper water. He disappears. Soon, she sees Burke surface again near his boat. He boards, strips off his equipment, then fires up the engine. He drives south the same direction he was heading before.
Let's go.
Exterior cliff path day. As Matt and Catherine approach the road, they can see police lights through the trees. A police car is stopped behind Isabel's Jeep, parked on the shoulder.
Shit.
They creep closer. A police officer stands beside his patrol car. He's talking on the radio, the cord stretched out of his window as he stares at Isabel's Jeep.
Leave it. Come on. Let's go. We'll walk.
Where?
Exterior ocean dusk. A woman, mid-30s, swims alone in the ocean. She's way out beyond the buoys that mark her resort's swimming area. Exterior underwater dusk. Seen from underwater, she's a strong swimmer, athletic. Exterior shore dusk. Seen from shore, she comes in and out of view as the waves between her and the breaking surf rise and fall. There, gone again. But as another wave falls, she doesn't reappear. Exterior Decker's property night. Hours later, a taxi pulls up to Decker's place. Tired, dirty, and disheveled, Matt and Catherine get out. Decker's place is lost in the night, not a single light on. Interior Decker's house night. Matt and Catherine enter.
Hello?
Catherine bumps into a few things, trying to turn on some lights, and Matt heads to get a drink of water in the kitchen. A new case of whiskey sits on the counter, one bottle missing. Matt hears a noise and glances out the window.
Found him.
Exterior Decker's property night. Decker's slumped with an empty bottle on an old rusted boat that sits on a trailer behind his house, as if on some imaginary journey. He's practically passed out, mumbling. Catherine climbs up and takes the bottle out of his hands. He struggles to focus on her, shaking his head.
No.
I'm sorry.
Get off my boat.
We had nowhere else to go.
Interior Decker's house, bedroom night. Catherine steers Decker toward his bed.
I can find it just fine. I don't need no guide.
He drunkenly kicks off his boots, and he's slurring his words.
I feel they probably nabbed you by now. Or that shark man of yours got one of your toesies.
Decker collapses sideways on his bed, and as he does, he gestures toward Catherine.
Come here, baby.
Heading toward the door.
Get some sleep.
I knew it. Still got it.
Decker trails off asleep as Catherine leaves the room. Interior Decker's house, living room night. Catherine walks back into the living room. Matt's standing in front of the television. On the screen, a helicopter is flying over the coastline. Matt looks to Catherine.
There's been another one.
Interior Decker's kitchen night. Catherine's at her laptop. On the laptop screen, she does an internet search of Benjamin Burke. She sees entries showing he used to teach at a few different universities in the States before retiring early several years ago. He seems to have spent much of the last decade traveling the world, diving and collecting art. Isabel's iPhone buzzes beside her. She looks at the incoming number, and it's a call from her law firm. She stares at it for a second, then hits ignore. She goes back to her research, and we see various photos of Burke in Thailand, Malaysia, Australia, India, Canada, on boats and docks with artifacts. Catherine looks at Matt on the living room couch. He has his back to her, but his body heaves. He's quietly crying. Catherine looks back to her laptop, then back at Matt. She crosses the room and sits on the edge of the couch. It seems awkward for her, but she puts a hand on his shoulder. He turns to face her, his cheeks wet with tears. He wipes his eyes and looks at Catherine for several seconds.
I'm fine.
It's okay.
A long silence.
I know this is crazy.
I loved her. I was gonna... But I never ever told her. So I'm telling you, all right?
Catherine nods. Matt leans up and hugs her. She's surprised at first, but then she lifts her arms and hugs him back, warmly, for a long moment. Catherine's taken aback by what she's doing, but then she gives in. She lets Matt back down. Exterior ocean night. Rain falls on dark ocean waves, then a downpour. Exterior underwater night. We move along the bottom so dim we can hardly see. Shadows of coral, clouds of fish, then open water. For a few seconds, we see almost nothing. Then shadows in the distance. Something big, immobile, gathered in the deep. Interior, Decker's kitchen, night. Catherine closes her laptop and looks around. The microwave clock shows 12:30 a.m. In the living room, Matt's asleep on the couch. She creeps towards Decker's bedroom and listens. All is quiet. She moves to a messy shelf near the front door and begins quietly looking for something in the dim light. She soon has her hands on the keys to Decker's truck. Light from the fridge opening startles her. Decker's awake in the kitchen, disheveled, the milk carton in his hands. Catherine palms the truck keys and approaches. Decker nods at her, takes another big drink from the carton, puts it back in the fridge. His eyes glance over to Matt's silhouette on the couch.
We were going to go to the consulate, but...
Decker looks back to her, then back to the fridge, sighing.
Want a beer?
We found him.
Interior Decker's kitchen, night. A couple of empty beer cans sit on the table. Decker's looking at the video they took earlier in the day on Matt's phone. He puts it down.
So he likes to look at women under the water.
He's a predator.
He's no more a predator than those guys who roam the beaches with metal detectors. Probably the same percentage of pervert mixed in.
You're wrong, and I think you know it.
He sits back down and opens a beer for himself, then one for her. Catherine looks at it as if she hadn't asked for it.
Even if I am wrong, you're the one who's going to bring this guy down?
He took my sister.
You can't save a life after it's gone. All you're doing now is fucking up your own.
Decker gestures toward Matt.
And his.
Catherine's eyes linger on Matt for a few seconds.
I came here for the wrong reasons.
She turns back to face Decker. A silence.
Our parents died in a plane crash. They were on their way to my graduation. My boyfriend, fiance, technically, he was with them. It was a surprise. He wasn't supposed to make it till a couple days later. The plane came apart off the East Coast. No survivors. No real answers either. Most of the wreckage, bodies, the black box, it was just too deep.
Decker nods.
I remember thinking, I have to take care of Isabel now, but she didn't want to be taken care of. She kept going to those information meetings, and I don't know. Then she left. I thought she was the one that took it hard, let it derail her. I always thought that.
I'm sorry.
I came down here thinking she needed my help, but maybe it was me that disappeared.
Another silence, in which Decker grows increasingly uncomfortable. He drinks down his beer.
Well, this one time in the North China Sea, I'm working salvage for a British company. 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out. Early 90s, maybe. I don't know. We got a call from the local Coast Guard asking for help. Well, a few of us got on a helicopter ride out to the mainland, and there were family members everywhere. Media, it was a ferry, one of them long crossing boats, overloaded with families, workers, groceries.
Chickens.
Decker smiles at chickens as if he exaggerated that part to get Catherine to smile. She does not. We move into Decker's memory, an underwater shot. Flashback sequence intercut with present. A diver's point of view, following the lead of his flashlight, coming in on one of the fresh wrecks of an old ferry.
Pressure had sealed all but one way into her belly.
We pass through a shattered window, a narrow opening into the boat's dark hull.
It's dark in there, and quiet. Everything slows down.
In a hallway, a diver passes a floating, drowned body. He has to move in and out of the way in order to swim by.
I start working on one of the sealed doors one by one, stern to bow.
A flash as the diver lights his welding torch and takes it to the seams of a door.
We called it Russian roulette. Nothing or a nightmare.
The torch extinguished, the diver now pulls the door open. A child's shoe floats out of the room, passing by the man's mask. He stares at it as it spins slowly in the water. He raises his light and shines it into the room. Inside, a dark nursery of floating chairs, toys, games, stuffed animals, floating peacefully among the debris, are the bodies of nearly 20 Chinese children and 2 adult women. The diver's eyes take it in, flaring slightly. End flashback sequence.
I never had a sister, but I know what happens when you don't let go of a thing.
A bit of rain and wind hits the window.
You call it letting go.
Catherine glances around Decker's ramshackle home.
Or running away.
Decker stares at her, the words sinking in.
But I can't afford to do that anymore.
Decker shifts and gulps down his beer.
You need to take a hard look at your options here. The cops will catch up with you.
Catherine looks back at Matt.
You're right. I could use a cup of coffee and some food.
Let me take a shower and I'll cook you up some of them corn fritters. How about that?
Catherine nods and forces a smile. Decker heads to the bathroom and closes the door. Catherine checks the clock. It's 1:30 a.m. She stands and hears the water turn on in the bathroom. Heads over to her laptop bag, pulls out a thumb drive, and puts it in her purse. Exterior Decker's property night. Decker's truck roars to life and then he peels out of the yard. Exterior Cancun roads night. Catherine drives Decker's truck along the quiet late-night streets. The rain has slowed, but the wind is still pretty strong. Interior Decker's truck night. Isabel's iPhone is on the seat next to Catherine, acting as a GPS. The standard GPS voice barking out directions. She heads deeper down the dark coastal road. She notices a pair of headlights behind her. She pulls off onto the approach road toward Marina Paraiso, where her and Matt followed Burke to his boat. The vehicle behind her drives on down the road. Exterior Marina Paraiso night. Catherine quietly gets out of the truck, parked far from the chain-linked fence which surrounds the marina. The guardhouse is lit by a bright lamppost. Beyond the gate, the dark shapes of the boats in the water. Exterior marina continuous. Catherine creeps her way down the dark parking lot. She can see a young Mexican security guard, his feet up on the counter, the light of a TV flickering on his face. She spots a place down the fence where the ground has eroded. She uses her hands to deepen the trench beneath the fence. Then she squeezes herself through. Interior Decker's house night. Decker emerges from the bathroom wrapped in a towel. He looks around his place, no sign of Catherine. He looks out the window and sees that his truck is gone.
Fuck.
Exterior marina night. Making her way in the dark along the interconnected docks, she's soon beside Burke's boat again. With a look at the distant guardhouse, she steps aboard. Exterior Burke's boat night. Catherine heads for the cabin door. It's locked. She pulls out Isabel's iPhone out of her purse and she finds the flashlight app and shines it into the cabin windows. The table where the laptop once was is bare. The rest looks unchanged. Cameras, dive equipment. She scans the room.
Come on.
She checks over her shoulder. No movement at the house. Frustrated, she scans the rest of the boat, desperate for something, anything. Exterior marina, night. Catherine's flashlight can be seen flickering in the dark, far out on the docks. The security guard's attention is still out on the TV screen in the marina parking lot. Exterior Burke's boat, night. Catherine's light crosses the boat's open cockpit and falls on Burke's mounted GPS unit. She flicks off the light and stares down at her phone in her hands. An idea. On her hands and knees, she feels around the carpet, sidewall, and floor of the boat. She examines a small gap in the boat's siding. Suddenly, the sound of a gate door swinging shut. Catherine looks up, and in the light around the guardhouse, she sees a man's silhouette heading towards the boat. The guard is standing in his booth now. He nods at the man, then turns back to the TV. Exterior Marina Paraiso docks night. Catherine climbs off the boat and crouches in a shadow, watching the silhouette, waiting to see where it's going. It's heading straight her way. Catherine stands up and starts heading back to the gate as casually as she can. From the approaching man's perspective, we can see Catherine's silhouette moving along the docks. The man takes a turn, trying to intercept her.
Excuse me.
Catherine sees the man make his way so she makes her own move, heading down a parallel dock, moving away from him. The man takes yet another turn to counter. Catherine looks at her options. The only way to go now is further away from the guardhouse. The man lights a flashlight and follows, calling out,
"That's a dead end."
Catherine sees he's right. The dock ends up ahead with the ladder down to the dark water. She glances into the shadowy boats to her left and her right, looking for an escape. The flashlight approaches her now, shining directly in her face. The man slows his step, coming to stop about 10 feet away.
"Do I know you?"
The man switches off his flashlight, coming closer. As her eyes adjust, Catherine sees the face of Benjamin Burke.
Catherine Gray, right?
Catherine is speechless. She looks past Burke toward the guard booth, then back at the man in front of her.
It is Catherine Gray, isn't it? I recognize you from the news.
Burke extends his hand.
Ben Burke.
Catherine doesn't move.
"I'm so sorry about your sister. A real tragedy. She was a business owner here, wasn't she?"
What do you want?
Burke seems upset to have to do away with pleasantries. He smiles awkwardly.
"Weren't you just on my boat again?"
Catherine is silent.
"I heard what happened at the gas bar. That was you, right?"
He looks at her sympathetically.
"Stupid. You could have been hurt. And I suppose that was you at the gallery, too? Now, assuming you didn't come down here to return my camera, is there some reason you've taken an interest in me, Miss Gray? Don't think I'm not flattered."
I just...
Catherine's words catch in her throat.
"Maybe we should let the police sort all this out. I'm sure they'd love to hear your side of the story."
Burke pulls his cell phone out of his pocket.
I know it's you.
"You know what's me."
You killed them. 9 of them, right? At least, including my sister.
"I can't imagine what you've been through the last few days."
Burke frowns and takes a step closer.
Don't.
"I don't know what you know, or you think you know, but listen, let's be reasonable. Why don't you come to my boat where we can talk?"
I saw the videos.
"I imagine you did."
No, the ones on your laptop.
Burke puts his phone back in his pocket.
"The water and everything in it is my life. Photography is a close second. Come to my boat, please. We'll have a drink. I'll show you my work, and we'll put this behind us, like two civilized people."
What did you do with her?
"Really, Miss Gray, this is getting ridiculous."
Catherine steps forward, raising her voice.
How did you do it?
He stares amazed.
What do you do with them?
He sighs and turns to leave.
Tell me!
"You need help.
He walks away.
Now, let's go see what you stole from my boat."
Catherine, enraged, marches back to him, grabs his shoulder, and spins him around to face her again.
Where's my sister?
Burke stares calmly into Catherine's rage. He smiles again, but this time there's something else in it. In an instant, his face distorts into savage anger. He lashes out, seizing Catherine high up on her arm. He twists it so hard that she teeters over the edge of the dock. His other hand grabs her neck, holding her up above the water. Catherine tries to struggle, but Burke shakes her violently until she's still. When she tries to scream, he tightens his hand on her neck, cutting off her words and her air.
"What are you thinking, huh?"
Burke's teeth are clenched, his lips not an inch from Catherine's ear.
"You're so smart, aren't you? See, I know things about you, Catherine. I know you're scared of the water. I know you think they're still out there somewhere, lost, waiting for you."
He leans in closer, delighting in his own words. He relaxes his grip just enough for Catherine to suck in some air.
"Listen, are they calling to you too? Your sister hears them."
The dark ocean swells in front of them. Catherine's face remains a picture of defiance.
What did you do to her?
Burke tightens his grip around her neck again. Catherine is choked silent. He leans further out over the water, spray from the crashing waves touching her face. Then a distant shout.
Catherine!
Burke looks up. Matt's visible, his body pressed to a section of chain link fence closest to the docks. Decker is seated on an old idling ATV. Alerted by Matt's shouting, the security guard gets up and emerges from his guardhouse with his flashlight. Burke yanks Catherine back onto the dock and lets her go. He straightens himself up and again is totally calm.
"You should forget about this and go home, Miss Gray. You have enough trouble as it is, and as I'm sure you see,
He leans in.
there are things in Mexico far more dangerous than the police."
Burke moves aside so she can pass, and Catherine storms by him.
Matt.
But Catherine is suddenly stopped, her purse ripped off her shoulder, and she whirls around. Burke, now holding the bag, puts his hand in, warning. She freezes. He lights a flashlight and does a quick search of the inside of her purse. The security guard's flashlight is coming down the dock now in a hurry. Matt watches anxiously from behind the fence. Burke calmly continues his search. When he's satisfied, he hands the purse back, and Catherine snatches it from him.
Everything okay here?
Burke looks to Catherine, giving her the option, daring her almost to speak up.
"Shall we call the police?"
With the last look, Catherine turns away and marches up the dock, past the security guard, toward Matt.
"Everything's fine, Manuel. Sorry for the trouble."
The security guard heads back, checking the boats as he goes. Burke watches Catherine exit the gate. Burke watches as Catherine exits the gate and meets up with Matt. They head up the access road to Decker's truck. Exterior Burke's boat, night. Burke shines his own light around the boat's interior, doing a quick mental inventory. He checks the door to the cabin, still locked. For a moment, it seems like he might be done, but then he starts searching through the side compartments, opening small containers, scouring the boat thoroughly. Interior Decker's house, night. There are bruises on Catherine's neck and arm where Burke gripped her. The one in her arm is a vague shape of a hand. She's touching it gingerly. Matt paces, thinking. Decker puts a bag of ice on Catherine's arm and she winces.
Still think I'm imagining things?
Decker meets her eyes for a second.
It'd be safer for you if you were locked up.
There's something else, something he said.
Catherine speaks slowly, trying to piece something together.
He knows things about me, my past. He knows Isabel.
I think I'd know about it if she knew a guy like this.
He knows about our parents.
It's impossible.
Decker, who's been staring out the window, turns back. Something occurs to him.
How would he do it? For argument's sake.
Weight belts make you sink, right? So if you didn't have your...
Buoyancy compensator.
You'd sink like a rock.
Not fast enough. And it'd be hard to sneak up on swimmers carrying all that weight around.
The wire, then. On his boat? Like the piece you found diving?
Decker thinks this might be plausible.
Salvage wire. Only if something was rigged up ahead of time.
What, like a trap?
To the ocean floor. Something mechanical and powerful.
Oh, God.
He'd be in complete control. Far away from the surface.
Their imaginations flash.
He could even...
Catherine and Matt stare at Decker.
So we follow him everywhere. Land, water, and hope to hell he gives us something we can work with, some evidence
before we all get arrested.
Boats don't follow other boats with any kind of subtlety.
Catherine reaches for the laptop.
Who said anything about following him in a boat?
Catherine flips open her laptop and works for a few seconds, turns her screen around to face Decker and Matt. On the laptop screen, we see a map of the coast. A red dot flashes. Catherine zooms in. The flashing is centered on the Marina Paraiso, where Burke's boat is moored. Catherine using an iPhone app to track Isabel's cell, which she hid on Burke's boat.
Is that what I think it is?
Exterior Decker's property, dock, early morning. The sun rises over the ocean, its first rays hitting the shore, and Decker's boat, the Oblivion. All is quiet, the morning clear and calm. A hermit crab seizes the moment, leaving its shell and skittering across an open beach. Interior, Decker's house, morning. Catherine sleeps in a chair, her laptop open in front of her. Matt's passed out on the couch. Decker's out on his porch. Catherine's eyes flutter open. It takes only a blink or two for them to find the laptop screen.
He's moving.
Interior, Decker's living room, morning. Catherine, Decker, and Matt are gathered around the laptop screen. The blinking dot is moving south along the coast. Decker points to the screen near the dot.
That's where you lost your car.
There's the rising sound of the police siren from the road close by. All three of them listen as the siren fades away, growing fainter. They look back at the laptop.
Still heading south.
Exterior Burke's boat, morning. Burke, atop his boat, kills the engine and drops anchor. Only a couple thousand feet from jagged cliffs. No other boats, no signs of life. He takes in the scene. Interior Decker's house, morning. Matt paces. Decker peels an orange at the kitchen sink. Catherine's still at the laptop.
Half hour in the same spot?
Nothing out there. No reefs, no beach, just rock, cliff, jungle.
We need to go there once he's gone. You need to be at the marina when he gets back.
Me?
Well, he knows me.
Decker tosses a reluctant Matt the keys to his truck.
Don't let him out of your sight. The gallery opening's tonight. If he's going, you're going.
Wait, you broke some priceless shit in that place. And oh yeah, my picture's in the newspaper.
Catherine looks him over. Matt's still wearing the same shorts and surf shirt he's had on for days. With his dreadlocks, he looks like a homeless surfer.
Do you have something I can wear?
Clothes ain't the only problem.
Exterior Burke's boat day. Still alone on the water, Burke walks slowly toward the back of his boat. He slowly raises his arms over the water like a preacher, eyes closed, hands outstretched. In the cockpit, sitting in plain view, right next to Burke's own GPS unit, we see Isabel's iPhone. Interior Decker's house day. On Catherine's laptop, the red dot is moving.
He's heading back.
Decker, working on the engine in his living room, stands up.
I'll get the boat prepped.
Hey.
Decker turns around.
Thank you.
Decker nods. He lingers a few seconds. He half gestures at his rundown home, the engine parts scattered, a survey of what his life's become.
Things weren't supposed to turn out like this, you know?
Catherine nods in understanding. Decker finally firms up and heads for the door.
By the way, if I go to jail, I keep charging my day rate.
Interior Decker's truck day. Matt's parked at a distance from the marina. His dreadlocks have been cut off, replaced by a buzz cut. He's dressed in some of Decker's clothing, a button-down and a pair of slacks. Matt spots Burke getting off his boat in the marina. He watches him come out of the front gate and into his SUV. Exterior Cancun Roads day. Matt trails Burke, trying to keep his distance without getting too far back. Suddenly, he's cut off by a bunch of locals in a beat-up van. Cars honk and swerve. It's all pretty standard for Mexico, but Matt misses the light and Burke doesn't. Locked in traffic, there's nothing Matt can do but watch as Burke drives down the road.
Fuck!
Matt slams his hand onto the wheel. Then he picks up a copy of a local newspaper folded to reveal a large half-page ad. Macabre Gallery opening 7 p.m. He looks at his watch. It's only 6. Exterior Decker's boat day. Catherine and Decker pull away from the shore heading south. Back on Matt. Matt notices a bit of a hush spread through the crowd and a bit of a whisper. News spreading. Close on. Did I skip a page? Nope. I absolutely did. Back on Matt. Interior Decker's truck day. Matt approaches the Macabre Gallery. He sees valet parking and attendants getting organized. Matt pulls to the side of the road across the street and waits, watching. Exterior Decker's boat day. On Decker's boat, the GPS display shows they are getting closer to their destination marker. Cliffs and jagged rocks guard the coastline. Catherine scans the horizon nervously. Interior Decker's truck evening. Matt watches people arrive. He keeps an eye on the crowd and scans up and down the street, watching and waiting for Burke's arrival. Exterior Decker's boat evening. Decker slows the boat as they approach the area Burke was anchored at earlier that day. Decker's dog Smitty suddenly gets up, startling Catherine. He jumps, his paws on the freeboard, his head cocked down. He barks loudly and growls at the water.
Easy, Smith. Easy.
Is this the spot?
According to the GPS, it's still a few hundred yards that way.
Decker kills the engine, drops anchor. He looks at Smitty worried. The dog continues a low growl. Decker suits up. Catherine looks a little ashen, a mixture of nerves and seasickness.
It's probably nothing, but I'm going to take a look.
Decker tests his regulator and checks the tank's pressure. Catherine notices Decker's hand trembling a little.
You okay?
Decker nods and grunts. He sets the dive clock on the dash to 20 minutes and presses start. Catherine's about to protest.
I'll be right back. At this depth, it won't get much bottom time anyway.
Decker glances at Smitty, who is still growling, then drops over the edge of the boat. Exterior underwater evening. Decker descends deeper and deeper, splitting his attention between his depth meter and the dark water below. Passing 50 feet, he lights a flashlight. Interior Macabre Gallery evening. Matt enters the crowded gallery. He takes a glass of wine from a roving waitress, both to fit in and calm his nerves. It's a well-dressed crowd of locals, expats, and tourists. Matt weaves around clusters of guests toward the back of the room where Burke's exhibit is staged. He moves tentatively, as if afraid of coming face-to-face with the man himself. Exterior underwater evening. Decker approaches the ocean floor 80 feet down. He slowly scans his flashlight around. It's nothing but sandy bottom and occasional rocks. He kicks off, stirring sand, and moves along the bottom, his flashlight swinging from side to side. Interior Macabre Gallery evening. Matt scans the crowd. A small podium has been set up near Burke's central exhibit for his exhibit opening talk. Close-on shoes. A pair of well-shined dress shoes enter the gallery from the back and start to move across the floor to the crowd, making their way to the front. Back on Matt. Matt notices a bit of a hush spread through the crowd and a bit of a whisper, news spreading. Close-on shoes. The shoes continue to the front of the crowd, then arrive at the podium near Burke's exhibit. We now rise up to reveal they belong not to Burke, but to the gallery owner.
Excuse me, everyone. Could I have your attention, please?
Exterior Decker's boat evening. Catherine scans the waves and glances at the dive clock. 14 minutes left. She's petting Smitty, who's now calmed down. Decker's cell rings. Catherine answers, intercut with Matt at the gallery.
Yes?
He's not here.
What?
Burke is not here.
At the gallery, from behind Matt, we can see the gallery owner fielding questions from the crowd.
Where is he?
He's never showed up. They're saying it's a family emergency, something about leaving town. I lost him in the fucking traffic. But I thought I could... Anyway, I'm here, and he's not coming.
Catherine spins around, half expecting to see Burke's boat approaching down the coast, but there's nothing but ocean. She looks at the dive clock, 12 minutes left.
Hello? Are you there?
His boat. Get to that marina, tell me if his boat's there.
But now?
Right now!
Catherine hangs up, she grabs his binoculars and begins scanning the horizon. Nothing. Exterior, underwater evening. Decker's still moving along the bottom. At the outer edge of his light, we start to see shadows, outlines of something, rocks or coral formations near the ocean floor. As he gets closer, the shapes and shadows pull into focus. Decker's eyes widen, bubbles burst from his regulator. At the extent of his light, a little deeper down, a flat rock bottom extends in all directions. Floating above the rock bottom, swaying in the current, he sees two human bodies. Long rivers of hair float upwards from decomposing skulls. As he gets closer, Decker takes in the entirety of the scene. A large ring of women's bodies, rotted and bloated, chained together, anchored to a number of hooks drilled into the ocean floor. The women are in various states of decay. Decker hangs in the water just above the scene. The bodies form an almost perfect enclosed circle, eerie, facing out. It's eerily reminiscent of the stone sculpture of figurines holding hands that Catherine saw in the art gallery. It seems there's room for just a few more bodies. Empty eye rings have been drilled into the ocean floor in preparation. All that's missing are the corpses. Decker spins around suddenly and there's no one there. The water is very dark here. He calms himself with a few deep breaths, then continues peering into the bloated faces of the newer additions, looking at each one carefully. Exterior Decker's boat evening. Smitty's barking loudly and frantically again, louder than before. Catherine tries to calm him down, not knowing how. She looks helplessly between the frantic dog and the dive clock. 3 minutes, 2:59, 58. 57. The cell phone rings.
Matt?
Exterior Marina Paraiso evening. We see Matt at the marina. Burke's boat is in the slip.
His boat's still here.
Intercut. Catherine looking slightly reassured, but Smitty continues to bark.
Where could he have gone?
What's going on? Everything okay?
I'll call you back, Matt. You have to find his car.
Where?
I don't know. Just do it.
Catherine hangs up. She looks down at the cell phone in her hands, low battery. She scans the ocean floor, then whips around the cliffs as if something has occurred to her. She grabs the binoculars and scans the cliff tops. Smitty's barking stops. She looks down at the dive clock, 20 seconds. Catherine stares as the final seconds count down. The clock flashes 0. Catherine scans the water around the boat, looks back at the clock. Another minute goes by, then another. The horizons are still empty, and Catherine is alone on the water. Moments later, Catherine's face is resolute, but tears roll down her cheeks as she moves toward the boat's controls. Her trembling hand reaches tentatively for the key in the ignition, and she turns it. A loud click from the engine. Catherine tries again. Click, click, nothing. She presses the way-anchored button she saw Decker use, and nothing. She looks at the mounted GPS. It's on its own battery power. Catherine heads to the back of the boat, bends down, opens the battery compartment, and stares at the tangle of wires, and some look broken or disconnected. In the water behind the engine, she catches the reflection of something in the water, glinting in the sunlight.
Oh, thank Christ.
It's the face of a diver looking at her a few feet beneath the surface. But it's not Decker. Catherine screams. She stumbles backwards as far as she can go, gasping, watching the back of the boat with terrified eyes. A few seconds go by. Nothing. With trembling hands, Catherine reaches for the cell phone and dials. Interior Decker's truck evening. Matt drives and answers his ringing cell.
Catherine.
Intercut.
He's here, Matt.
Okay, wait.
The boat's dead. Help, Matt. Please help.
The boat rises on a swell. To keep her balance, Catherine pulls her hand free down from the boat's railing, but as the boat falls back toward the water, in a flash, a hand grabs her. She shrieks. A piece of looped wire, a snare, slipped around her wrist and cinched tight. She has only a split second to struggle before the cord yanks her body down in a single violent jerk. Catherine's ribs slam into the side of the boat. She tries to pull back on the line, but the force is relentless, and in a flash, her whole body is jerked over the side. The boat is quiet, except for a faint voice on the phone.
Hello? Catherine! Hello?
Exterior underwater evening. A flurry of bubbles, panicked limbs, and underwater screams as Catherine is zipped all the way down to the floor of the ocean, blood pouring from her wrist. She hits the bottom, ears ringing, heart pounding. She sees her wrist cinched close to a high-powered remote-controlled electric winch anchored to a rock. She fights to get free, glimpsing amorphous shapes hanging in the water around her. Then movement. Someone is close. Her eyes bulge, her mouth wide, her lungs empty. Out of the shadow, a full-face breathing mask is thrust toward her. At first she resists, fights, screams, but a naked human need to survive takes over. She urgently helps the mask over her face. She breathes in all she can, deep, hungry breaths. She blinks and focuses. She's face to face with Burke. A red light in his dive mask blinks. He's recording. He caresses her hair and looks directly into her eyes. He seems almost gentle, sympathetic, as he binds both of her hands together, leaving her hooked to the ocean floor. Finally catching her breath, Catherine's eyes dart around her surroundings. The first thing she sees is Decker's body, hanging in the water, his legs snared to the bottom, his face frozen in panic, regulator dangling beside him. Beyond, she sees the ring of rotten bodies chained together. Two bodies appear very fresh. She can't see her sister. Burke unhooks Catherine, along with the winch, from an eye ring drilled into the ocean floor. He locks her to a ring on his belt so that she's positioned underneath him. When she starts to fight, he takes her mask off until she's once again ready to obey. He's very patient with her until she's ready to cooperate. They approach a waiting personal-sized diver propulsion device also clipped to the ocean floor. Burke unhooks the device and starts it up. He drives himself and his victim toward the cliffs along the bottom. They soon approach, then pass through a narrow fissure, an opening in the underwater rock wall. Burke navigates a small tunnel that eventually opens into interior cenote evening. They break the surface in an underwater cavern. Dark. Burke switches on a portable lamp, casting ominous shadows. Nearby, there's a small rock beach. Hooks and chains nailed into the rock trail across the gravel and into the water. There, on the shore, Isabel's body lies limp on the rocks, half in the water, her feet shackled. Catherine's eyes flare.
Isabel!
Near Isabel's body is a very large air tank. A hose snakes out of it and into the cavern pool. Further up the beach, a dry tunnel seems to lead out of the cave. At its mouth, Burke's belongings and scuba equipment are gathered. A video camera sits on a tripod. Burke frees the hyperventilating Catherine from her bonds and watches her as she splashes frantically over to Isabel. Catherine cradles her sister's body, screaming and sobbing. As she does, Isabel lets out a weak, water-filled cough. She's alive. She's suffered terribly, but she's alive. We see Burke's point of view through his camera mask as he comes in close on the sisters' reunion. Catherine cradles Isabel, crying, speaking to her. Burke glances at all the empty, trailing chains longingly.
She was one of the last ones. I gave her special treatment.
He goes to touch Isabel's face gently, but Catherine swats his hand away, surprising him. Burke grabs Catherine by the hair and drags her flailing body back to the water. He holds her face just over the surface and slips his breathing regulator back onto his mouth. Catherine is breathing again in rapid fits, trying to glance at Isabel again and again, pleading with Burke.
No, God, no, please don't.
Burke smiles. Catherine is plunged underwater again, bubbles screaming from her contorted mouth. Underwater, Catherine spots another woman, blurry in the water in the bottom of the pool, chained down there, immobile. She's wearing some kind of cast iron face mask with an air hose that rises up to the giant tank on the surface. Catherine fights Burke's grip as hard as she can. He treats her tenderly, staring lovingly as she begins to drown. He enjoys her panic, helplessness, her horrific realization of what's about to happen to her, her last desperate edge-of-death gaze. When it's about to go black forever, he jerks her head back to the surface and blows oxygen from his mask into her mouth, slaps her conscious again. He looks into her eyes as she spits up water. As Catherine gasps, Burke tries to kiss her. She turns her head. He puts his mouth close to her.
I owe you something, Catherine. You made me work harder, faster. I was lazy, but thanks to you.
Fuck you, you animal.
Burke holds her underwater again, but then pulls her up.
You're wrong to be scared of the water. Drowning, not breathing. Death is a sacrifice. You should experience it slowly, intimately. Its hands on your body, its blackness crowding your eyes, pounding on your lungs. You're a lucky girl, Catherine. Like all your sisters now, I'll make sure your death has meaning. We'll draw strength from it together as I set you free again and again. Just relax now. Shh, relax.
Burke slips the regulator into his mouth, and Catherine fills her lungs with a desperate deep breath. They submerge again. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, a whole minute. Catherine is nearly unconscious, her eyes darkening before Burke suddenly hauls her up again. She gasps, coughs, she throws up. Burke is aroused. He stares into her eyes as she catches her breath.
There you are.
He drags her under again, an eternity, then brings her up, saving her again at the last second. As Catherine hungrily gasps for air, Isabel is visible, standing shakily on the shore, one of those iron manacles in her head attached to a chain. Burke looks up at her just as she swings it at him, fast, out of the shadows, directly onto his skull. He passes out instantly, floating limp in the water, blood flowing from his head. Catherine pulls herself onto the shore. She weakly grabs the first large rock she finds and turns around to strike Burke with it. He's drifted slightly out of reach toward the center of the pool. With a scream, Catherine hurls the rock at Burke's body. It crashes into the water just inches from his head. Catherine reaches down for another rock. Catherine turns her attentions to her sister, speechless. Isabel points to the opening in the back of the cavern.
He came in that way today.
Catherine glances at Burke's drifting body.
The keys are in his bag.
Isabel points to Burke's gear bag. Catherine searches through and grabs an underwater flashlight and turns it on. With the help of the light, she finds the keys.
Come on.
Catherine tries several keys before she unlocks Isabel's manacle. A look of concern crosses her face when she sees the raw flesh around Isabel's ankle.
I can make it. We have to go now.
Catherine pulls Isabel up, then hesitates.
There's someone else in the pool.
The bubble stopped a few hours ago. She's gone.
Glancing back at Burke floating unconscious in the water, the girls disappear down a dark tunnel. Interior caverns evening. The caverns split off in different directions. Guessing, the girls choose the widest passage and carry on. Interior caverns evening. They make it into another cavern, a pool of water, but no dry exit.
Give me the flashlight.
Isabel takes the flashlight and dives down into the water. Catherine is alone in the cavern. Exterior underwater cavern evening. Underwater, Isabel spots an opening in the rock. Exterior caverns evening. She breaks the surface, taking deep, painful breaths.
There's a passage, but we have to swim under the rock.
Catherine looks terrified, but breathes deep.
Okay.
Exterior underwater caverns evening. Catherine follows Isabel onwards into the black water. Near total panic, Catherine makes it through and the girls break the surface on the other side. Stalactites hang low on the surface. Barely room to surface, barely room to breathe. They go under again, Isabel leading with the flashlight through another passage. It's clear Isabel's in tremendous pain as she swims. Catherine manages to keep up with her, but it's obvious that while she's underwater, she's a knife's edge away from complete and utter panic. They soon come to a dead end, gasping the few inches of stagnant air at the top of the cavern. They start doubling back to a different route when they see another flashlight approaching, predator-like. The sisters race through another tunnel, grabbing bits of air near the ceiling when they can. Each dive is getting harder and harder for both of them, especially Isabel, who's losing stamina and fast. The next underwater tunnel seems to shine with the natural light from the other side, but it's a long, narrow passage.
I see light, real light, but it's a long one. You better go first.
No.
I can help you easier if you get stuck. I'm a stronger swimmer.
Catherine summons all of her courage.
Hurry.
Catherine takes a deep breath, goes under, and starts frantically wiggling her body through the narrow passageway. Isabel takes a huge breath and follows. Isabel's halfway through when Burke's hand closes around her ankle. Bubbles stream from her face as she struggles. Catherine surfaces on the other side in a cave with multiple openings to the sky above. The day's last light streams in. Gasping for breath, she watches the surface for her sister.
Isabel? Isabel!
Catherine braces herself and takes a breath and dives back. Isabel, still held firm by Burke's grip on her ankle, reaches out blindly for something to hold on to. Her hands slip off sharp rocks and handholds until she finds Catherine's hand on the other side of the opening. Putting her legs up on a rock for leverage, Catherine pulls her sister's body through the water, which in turn pulls Burke further into the narrow passage, lodging his body with all of his equipment and bulky scuba tanks between the rocks. One of Burke's hoses gets pinched on the rock as he struggles, and it starts leaking air. He lets go of Isabel and fights to free himself. Isabel rushes to the surface, desperate for air. Catherine lingers for a second longer, shining her flashlight back into Burke's face. He stares at her, wide-eyed, trapped. Burke struggles, checking his air gauge. His panic rises to a fever pitch, a stream of air still pouring from one of his tubes. He screams for help under the water. Catherine stares coldly, then leaves him to his fate. Exterior cavern opening evening. It's a Herculean effort for the sisters to climb up a cave wall and out of the rocky opening. They find themselves in the jungle at dusk, scrambling over a hard terrain, holding onto each other's hands, stumbling forward through the brush. Exterior jungle road, night. It's now dark, stars framed by the trees. Emerging from the jungle, the two sisters come to a small dirt road. They see Burke's SUV parked a quarter mile away. Arm in arm, they limp their way toward the vehicle. Exterior Burke's SUV, night. They arrive at Burke's SUV and look inside. In the back seat, duffel bags, art prints, a briefcase, a laptop. The car's locked. Suddenly, there are headlights on the dark road ahead. A flash of fear in their eyes, mixed with hope. Isabel collapses from exhaustion.
Hang on, okay?
You saved me.
Catherine runs onto the road and starts waving her arms.
Stop, please! Hey!
The headlights traveling fast come to a screeching stop. It's Decker's truck. Matt emerges. He takes a few steps forward, staring at Catherine, then Burke's car, and then Isabel. His eyes are wide, silent, trying to comprehend. Fade to black. Fade in. An array of computer screens. Video footage plays. We see terrifying excerpts of Burke's underwater footage. Sections of the footage are sped up, rewound, and paused. A woman struggling for freedom is suddenly zipped away from the camera, deep into the dark water below. Another woman with ice blue eyes drowns in front of us, filmed closely, the same woman we saw drown in the opening. We hear official-sounding Spanish voices in the background, muted, Mexican investigators discussing. Interior hospital room day. Catherine wakes up in a hospital bed, bandages on her cuts, an IV in her arm. As she focuses, she sees Matt at her bedside. The blur of a nurse moves around in the background.
My sister.
She's in the next room, sleeping.
I found her.
Matt has tears in his eyes. Catherine looks at his hair, his buzz cut. She smiles. Matt runs his hands through his hair and he smiles back.
It's over, Catherine. The media is all over this. The police are backpedaling like crazy. They say you'll both get out in a few days.
It takes all of Catherine's energy just to smile. Matt glances over his shoulder at a shadow appearing in the hospital room door. He looks back to Catherine.
The police want to talk to you.
Catherine shakes her head. The last thing she wants to do right now is talk to the local police.
It's okay. They want to know about Burke, some guy from like Mexican FBI. He's been here waiting here all day to talk to you.
Catherine eventually nods. Matt makes his way for Detective Flores of the Policía Federal. He sits down beside Catherine.
How are you feeling?
Catherine gives a slight shrug.
I'll be right back, all right?
Catherine nods and Matt exits.
I'm Detective Flores.
A bit of silence between them.
We found the bodies and are working to identify them. There's 12 so far, and the man you were with, of course.
Catherine closes her eyes briefly at the thought of Decker.
But
Do you think there's more?
we found hundreds of hours of footage on his computer. Well organized. We're just starting to go through it all. We're not sure it's all from Mexico.
Catherine turns and looks out the window. There's a few seconds of silence.
One of our main concerns now, of course, is locating him.
Catherine turns back, confused.
He's dead.
Yes, we found some of his gear floating in the caves, but we have yet to find a body.
He was trapped.
His body could have dislodged, drifted. We're still looking. Some of these cenotes go on for miles underground.
Catherine looks weak, tired.
Get some rest. We'll go through all this in more detail when you get better.
He's dead. I saw him. He's dead.
A nurse comes to the door. The detective nods, then rises.
You're safe now, Miss Gray. Many others do.
He gives her a nod of recognition. He leaves his card beside Catherine's bedside and heads out, along with the nurse. Catherine alone stares around the room. She sees her laptop bag as well as a suitcase, the one she abandoned at her resort, sitting against the wall. She looks away from it and glances out the window for a long moment, looking at a few palm trees in the distance. In the silence, she closes her eyes. Seconds later, she opens them and turns toward the door. Isabel is standing there in a hospital gown, a pair of crutches under her arms, a smile on her face. Isabel approaches, sits down. Catherine grabs her hand. She then lifts herself up in the bed, groaning in pain until she's seated upright. Isabel tries to protest.
Cat, be careful.
Catherine wraps her arms around Isabel and pulls her close. She holds her tight. Neither sister wants to let go. Exterior hospital day. From high outside the hospital, Catherine and Isabel are visible together in one of the many windows. We pull back further, higher, widening to see the ocean in the distance beyond the hospital. Exterior beach day. Tourists play on the beach, a typical day in a typical resort city. Exterior underwater day. On the bottom, the muffled sounds of splashing, a passing boat motor, the hollow and human sounds of the ocean. Lodged amidst some rock and coral, a rusting eye ring. Deeper in the ocean, cold infinite silence, blackness. Sequence. The credits sequence rolls over a collection of international headlines and photos and snippets of text from articles dealing with Burke's life, his motives, his crimes. Monster of the deep, shark man steeped in Mayan culture, ritual, fascination with the moment of death. Killer drowns victims, revives them, then drowns again. Professor of death. Sexual obsession with death began in childhood. Killer liked to watch victims die, over and over. Serial killer's body, never found. Exterior, Rio de Janeiro beach, dawn. Title, 6 months later. A jogger makes his way down an isolated beach at sunrise, the surf rolling in beside him. He carries on down the beach, and we slowly move in on the approaching waves. Tossing in the white froth and rising tide, a human foot slowly makes its way on shore. Fade out. Woo!
Yeah.
All right, guys, that was The Drowning Pool, written by Colin, McNeil, and Dan Minsky. The cast and I are going to take a minute to compose ourselves after that eerie script, but we will have them on the phone. So for those watching live, stay tuned. We'll be back in 5 minutes. And for those listening, we'll see you in a second.
Hello?
Hi, is this Josh?
Yes, this is Josh.
Hi, it's Colin McNeil.
How's it going, Colin?
Good, you?
Yeah, good. I have another phone call coming in. Is this,
Dan, yeah.
it's Dan? Okay, let me see if I can answer that and link you guys. Hello, is this Dan? Hello? 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 Hey, Colin? Hello? Can you hear
Hi
me?
there.
Oh, sorry. All right, so I'm going to end up calling you back because in order to merge the calls, I'm going to have to call both of you at the same time.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hello, Dan?
Yeah.
All right, how's it going? So I think we're going to end up calling you back. Or actually stay on the line. We're going to merge you with Colin right now.
Sure.
We're just getting the number up. All right, so we're trying to get Colin in right now. Hopefully.
Sure.
Hello?
Hello.
Colin?
Yeah, this is Colin.
All
Yeah.
right, Dan, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, perfect. We got it. Sounds good. So Jeff and the crew, they're on a break right now. They'll be back in studio around, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah, once he gets on, you'll hear he'll bring it back. He'll say, "Welcome back to the Unproduced Table Read." Then he'll introduce you guys, and you're good from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Unproduced Table Read here on the Popcorn Talk Network. Colin and Dan, do we have you guys on the line?
Yeah, we're here. Yeah.
Awesome.
It sounded like calling in Dan.
Calling in Dan.
Yeah.
Are you guys in Canada right now?
Yeah, we're both
we're
in
in,
Canada.
we're in,
Yeah.
we're
Awesome.
in Canada.
Nice, I love it. Well, we're in sunny California, but I can't wait to get into this script. First of all, I kind of want to talk about you guys' production background. You guys originally worked in kind of like unscripted, location-based television. Is that right?
Yeah,
well,
we
both
both of us have actually. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Colin.
Yeah,
we both
worked
in
unscripted.
unscripted.
We both worked in unscripted stuff for several years, and a lot of it's been, there has been some crime stuff for A&E Bio and Discovery ID and that sort of stuff, and some travel to various locations, but I heard your preamble at the beginning sort of about the Nat Geo thing, and maybe this was a location-based thing, but I think probably a bigger influence on it might have been, writing a lot of, real true crime stuff or, productions like that, and being exposed to that. I think that was probably a bigger influence than any location kind of influence.
Well, let's talk about that because, like, obviously when you're telling a crime story like this, motive and character are the thing that make it interesting and separate, your kind of run-of-the-mill crime drama from other ones. And Burke is just such a twisted son of a bitch. Can you guys talk about kind of creating Burke and writing Burke and sort of what inspired you?
Yeah, well, I kind of want to say that what's funny is that I haven't written crime shows in a long time. I mean, a few years. But when we wrote the script, Colin and I were kind of neck deep in it. And I see what sick fucks we are. I mean, I have to say it. Like, I'm looking at the script, and I'm like, wow, But then I think, no, we really, I mean, it's amazing. And but I think it came from, at the time, it didn't seem like a big deal. I feel like I was more desensitized. As for a couple of years at least, I wrote exclusively crime shows with a lot of human beings that aren't fictional at all, that I guess are a lot like Burke, So I think Colin and I both know that there's real people like that out there that at least have elements like that. So as shocking as it is to me a couple years removed, I have to remember we were like neck deep in it at that time. Colin and I went through dozens and dozens of stories to produce, to decide which ones we wanted to produce and which ones we wanted to write. We both had that job on different crime shows. And so I think it's drawn on from very real experiences and from our own work life. And that is, as Colin said, the biggest influence on the script. And that's where Burke came from. I think he's very realistic, which is it's a terrible, frightening thing to say.
Well,
but there's people like that.
You have to get in the minds of your killers if you're going to write them well. And I went to a screening of Gone Girl when it had first come out, and Gillian Flynn was there, which was really cool. And she was talking about how she's like, yeah, like I'm just this, kind of nice, low-key person, but I love exploring the psyches of just crazy people. She was laughing. She was like, it was a bit weird for my husband to read this book after he was a little concerned, but that's your job as a crime writer. So can you talk about kind of giving Burke humanity, but also still making him this crazed psychopath?
I think in terms of the humanity, I mean, I think once we latched on to the type of background he had, an academic background, and drawing on, some themes and some characters. Obviously, you can look at Hannibal Lecter's and sort of that sort of stock character as well. We took that, I think, and then we tried to draw on, I guess, the obsession, the idea. A lot of, when you look at a lot of people that become serial killers, it starts small, and it might start with photography, and it might start with things, but gradually they build their own mythology around it. Mm-hmm. And so it just becomes an obsession of sort. I don't know how closely you can get into, his mindset beyond that. But I think, there's in crime, there's a famous, well, I don't know how famous he is, but people have, the BTK killer, for example, is a notorious serial killer in the States. And, a lot of Hollywood serial killers draw stuff from him and from Zodiac. And, he was just a normal guy with a family that just gradually developed a complete obsession with following people around and watching them till he had an elaborate library of notes and a complete secret life. Mm-hmm. And, I think this person might be slightly more diabolical than that and a little more contrived rather than driven by their obsession. But similar kind of vein. I don't know if, Dan, you want to add to that, but...
I just want to add that I think like humanity is the most important ingredient to horror. I think we know that, and that this kind of darkness can live in a very ordinary man, and we're not two-dimensional. And I think that's what I like about Burke is, you might know a different Benjamin Burke if you were one of his gallery friends, and how many people do we know that are nice, simple, magnanimous people? And what's scary is to imagine the darkness that sure we all have in us, and hopefully nothing nearly as close to Burke. But I think humanity is important to make darkness horrifying, and that's why he's scary to me, is he might come across like an upstanding guy.
Well, and what an interesting way to use art as a way to justify it's like, to him, it's like a craft. And I'm so interested that you link it back to these like kind of ancient Mayan death rituals. Can you guys sort of speak both about using art as a filter for insanity on Burke's part, and also like kind of the research that you had to do to build it and link it to this sort of ancient spirituality?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Mayan connection, I mean, we obviously did do some reading, and there was human sacrifice for several centuries in that culture, and there was also sacrifices involving the cenotes. There was a couple instances where they're known to sacrifice bodies in there as well. So we drew on that a bit, and the idea of basically human bodies, serving a larger purpose, and almost religious purpose. And I think because obviously Burke has this fascination with this culture and with the artifacts that world has drawn him in, and the artwork has moved him to a point where he's lost himself almost in his own rituals, and obviously his the way he does things. I mean, there's allusions to the sculpture of women. There's allusions to that in ancient sculpture. They're often friendship circles, but they're what exactly they symbolized. All that stuff has led him down a path of kind of creating his own art, and so obviously
I think the big thing
on a bit of. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, and I was going to add that I think the big thing is that the culture that he's obsessed with, that is depicted in art, in Mexico right now, it's their own history. They celebrated death. They made a celebration of it. Those sacrifices were part of religious ceremonies, and they were part of the culture. And death was experienced like that, and it was close to people. And I think that's in stark contrast to how it is today. Someone from Catherine's world, or up here where we live, we're not close to that. And I think that it's that sort of sanitation, and now we don't have death really around us in the culture, that creates an obsession maybe in someone like Burke. If I were to guess, where he got it from, I think we look into these ancient cultures, and that's what's missing. We don't live close to death like they do, to the point where they celebrated it, experienced it. So I think, in our world, it's possible that someone sees that and is a fascination and focal point for them. I always sort of thought that about really Burke, and then that celebration in the art and being part of the culture seemed to tie in nicely for me. It made sense.
That's very interesting, because it's almost a commentary on with comfort comes boredom, and it's almost like Burke was trying to escape just like the everyday minutia of what it's like to live in a modern world, and kind of attach to when the stakes were higher in a way.
Well, we do ignore our biggest truth, like death hangs around all of us, and I mean, I just don't think it's. I mean, when you compare our culture to a Mayan culture, they acknowledged it in a very big way and held huge celebrations around it and told people they were going to die and put them through the process of doing it. And it's horrific because I can't imagine it. I have a grandfather that passed away. It's truly my only exposure to this. And even when it is, we don't celebrate it like that. And yet, I think it's in us, and we feel maybe cut off or removed from it. It's kind of horrifying.
Yeah.
Some of us just go to the driving range, and Burke took it.
To each their own, I guess. I want to talk. This is really our first time reading a crime thriller on the show, so this is kind of a two-part question. But I want to first hear about sort of how you go about structuring a crime thriller, because it's important. You need to divulge specific information at specific times. And tied into that question, I want to hear about how you two write as a partnership.
Well, let's do first. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead,
I mean, I think in terms of this, I mean, we had the concept early on, and in terms of the antagonist and Burke and his methods, And we also very quickly latched on to a protagonist that would have to, we wanted a somewhat isolated female character, one that was going to have to go kind of down a traditional male character arc, which is kind of from hard to soft to kind of, living workaholic life and not in touch with their emotions and eventually getting, a little closer to them by the end. And then it was really a matter of getting, I think, a protagonist somewhat out of their element. And if you look at something like Chinatown, where you've got, you've got a protagonist who thinks they know what they're doing. They have skills, and but as they move deeper, things aren't quite what they seem. And so we sort of knew the middle when she discovered what the real mystery was and sort of how the end would go. And then it was just, I think, a matter of just layering the information in mysterious ways, parsing it out until we could get to a midpoint where, she discovers the true nature of the mystery, or at least what she thinks is the true nature of the mystery. And I think experiencing it through the protagonist, where you're not quite sure, where the end of her confidence lies and where the real world is, and one who's also got her own blinders on to some degree. I think it was that. It was us feeling through the mysteries. What would those clues be, and how would she read them? Mm-hmm. And then structuring it, just taking a look at it and structuring it within, a general act structure. So you've got your kind of key turning points. But I don't know if you want to add to that, Dan.
I just want to add quickly that I think just to bring it back to our experience on crime shows, a lot of those turning points and sort of twists and turns and revelations to Catherine, they're modeled after real things we'd seen as we'd, told stories of many investigations unfolding. And it's often little coincidental things or sudden realizations. So even reading it now a few years later, it seems very realistic to me in how an investigation would unfold. Our challenge and what's exciting is that it's not a trained police officer, but, this grieving sort of cold New York lawyer that's struggling with her emotions and is sort of surrounded by people that doubt her. That's what made it interesting. So we put her on a standard sort of police person's path and just, explored her difficulties together and brainstorm why, how she would have to solve each of her challenges.
Yeah, I actually have a
So
question.
I think, that's basically how we did it. We drew from a lot of personal experience or experience we had writing on these shows.
Yeah, and I think...
and then I guess about writing together.
Partners.
Yeah, I'm interested in the partnership aspect of your process.
Yeah,
I should... Go ahead.
We don't speak to each other anymore after this, as you can tell. We only speak when there's a group of people around. I'm just joking. What we did is, once we had the ideas, we spent a lot of time speaking on the phone, like hundreds of hours.
We're like two high school girls, like hours.
And we had never met face to face. We had worked over the phone on various projects, and he was living in Montreal in Eastern Canada, and I was sort of in the prairies. And so we actually wrote the script without ever having, seen each other. And what we do...
We weren't even Facebook friends. We didn't know what each other looked like.
And so we went through the process of roughly kind of, beating it out on the phone, and then we did write a 25-page treatment. And then what we'd often do is we'd talk for 2 or 3 hours. If we had a day off, we'd talk for 2 or 3 hours about, the 2 or 3 scenes we were about to approach. And sometimes we'd talk them right out. We might know all sorts of lines. We might know how it starts. And then, one of us would go off and write something, and, the other person would basically, read it the next day. There'd be a brief talk about that, and that person might clean it up a bit or make some changes to it. And meanwhile, the other person is, moving ahead with a scene. So that there was a lot of talking and a lot of, but it would sort of mornings of 2 hours in the morning of talking, and then someone heading off and working on something, and the other one maybe working behind and, adjusting stuff that had been written a few days earlier. And it went that way back and forth, and then we did eventually meet once it was done. And it was very awkward because
it was the worst blind date kind of thing. It was awkward.
Yeah, we didn't like to look at each other. So I think the first half hour we just walked down the street in Montreal, and we looked straight ahead because we were used to hearing each other's voices. But as soon as we looked at one another, it seemed like it's like when you meet a radio personality and you can't believe the voice comes out of that head. So.
That's funny.
That's really.
But anyway,
I've never heard
a
a journey like that. That's very, very interesting. Andrew, you had a question, I think.
Yeah, I have a quick question because you've been talking about the protagonist so much. Being two men that didn't even really be in the same room when writing together. It's very interesting that you chose 2 female protagonists. We recently had another writer, Cliff Yost, write a story with a female protagonist, but it was because he was raised by women solely, and he felt like a very close attachment to that. Why did you guys choose sisters instead of brothers, and why do you feel like you could write that better than men?
Dan, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I guess I'll just be honest. I think, first of all, marketability played into it because we knew, Colin and I really like movies with strong female protagonists, and we don't find that there are many. And we know that they're sort of popular, so or people are looking for scripts like that. So that was one. 2, I think it made her way more vulnerable. And as Colin, I hate to say that because that is a stereotype, but speaking of stereotypes, we also wanted to fly in the face of it and make a typical male sort of action hero in these typical sort of male thrillers. We wanted to give that arc and stick it on a woman. And, I think I'm also going to get myself in trouble saying that it was pretty easy to write a woman because I just wrote her like a person, like a man. Like I didn't try. I don't think we went digging for differences in female perspectives. And I thought that might be a failing on our part, but I just sort of treated Catherine's motivation as I would a male protagonist and try not to think about her gender. And I guess such is the result. I think we may have added what we thought were little feminine touches that a male wouldn't have had, but I think that's what's strong about Catherine is, of course she could do it as well as a man. If you put a man in there, that situation, sure, would play well. And I'm not sure that focusing on the difference is the right thing to do. I think that's how you write women, is just how you would write anyone. I think that's what makes Catherine strong. And maybe that won't work for every female character I write, but I hate to suggest there's no trick to it, but I don't think there's a trick to do it.
Cool. I was just very curious because it's always interesting to me when men choose to write women over because it's just a slight disconnect. That's all.
But I didn't. Yeah, what I liked is it's like the Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs journey, where just the subtlety of the choice is enough. I don't think you necessarily. Sometimes if you're making these such deliberate distinctions to, like you mentioned, differentiate gender, it can actually become more problematic. So I admire the choice.
You know what I find interesting? Is
and you see, sorry, I just want to say that you see Clarice's struggle through the people around her. Like, I think if you look at her closely, she could be a man. You could just take her lines and drop them into a male character's thing. And if you didn't know any better, I think you could just read that and it would work. What happens is that the stakes are added on top of her because she has all these weird looks and preconceived notions and all this sexism heaped on her. And it makes her journey tougher. And as a screenwriter, that's gold. You want stakes ramped up against your character. I hate that they're stereotypical, but they are. It's harder for Catherine because she's a woman, as it was Clarice, and we have a couple scenes that deal with that.
Mm-hmm. What were you gonna say?
What I find interesting is that writers always talk about how they want to make their protagonists female because it's more marketable and out of the norm. But I think what would be even more out of the norm and maybe pushing the limits is making the antagonist a female. Did you ever think about maybe writing Burke as a female rather than a male?
I don't think we ever did. And
because there was a sexual side to it, maybe.
Yeah.
I guess there still could be, though. Just a lesbian sexual side. It would be a different, less conventional approach, but you never know.
Speaking of,
well, I will say in the world of serial killers, they're predominantly men. So it wasn't really 99% of them are, and the few that are women tend to be like hospital nurses that euthanize people in the middle of the night. Not drag them down and strangle them over and over and that sort of thing. So there might have been some real world kind of thing in that decision, but I don't think we ever really contemplated it.
No.
What were you
going to
say, Roxy?
I don't remember.
I don't know. I've always thought that it's just men get caught.
There it is.
Whereas, and they've talked about that in terms of the black community. Like there's I read an article a long time ago that they aren't sure about if there is a lot of they're mainly talking about black men, like black male serial killers, because they one don't go enough into the community to notice if there is an actual symptom of a serial killer happening in the encounter. A pattern happening. And so I've always thought that about the same thing with women. I was like, I don't think it's that women are like wouldn't do it or incapable of it. It's just that if they are doing it, they may just not be getting
Better
caught.
at it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we got a new screenplay idea there.
So I want to talk about the ending because, well, I don't. If you guys had something else, wait, we'll do questions at the end. Actually, if you have any for us, but a quick question I want to ask is. The ending is interesting because with any crime narrative, there's a lot of choices you can make. You can have the protagonist live or die, you can have the victim live or die, and you can have Burke have a clean death or kind of shadily reappear as he does in your interpretation. Did you guys talk about different alternatives for the ending, or were you really sure you wanted to end it this way?
I think we're still talking about it.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's not, it's obviously it's a bit of a tease, ending like that, and I think some people have read it and liked it, and people have said, it doesn't work, or
It's
even
a
different variations, comments that kind of, and I don't know. I mean, it's literally something that could be changed in a matter of minutes. And no, we're not hung up on the ending. We don't. It just seemed fun at the time. I think.
And I will tell you what I like about it.
And yeah, go ahead.
I mean, there's obviously this undercurrent, it's subtle, but I mean, there's mythology throughout the script. And I like that even in Burke's death, he sort of, there's an air of mythology in the fact that he might carry on and, that there are people out there doing this and there's a mystery around the feet. So it's a loose affiliation, but it felt like it fit for me thematically. I was like, okay, the kind of myth lives on, or that sort of thing remains hidden in the darkness, to be continued.
It's not about a potential
sequel. Yeah, it's
sequel.
true. There was, there are those real-world mysteries of those feet that did wash up in the Pacific Northwest, and they keep coming up. The ocean keeps producing, random feet,
mysteries,
particularly along the western coast. And so, I mean, there was a bigger story than just our story here too. We did know that existed, and I think maybe the ending also served to that unsolved element of it as well.
And just the mystery of the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, was there a reason why you guys chose the ocean specifically? Have you spent a lot of time doing that with your Nat Geo work, or was it because you guys definitely encapsulated the creepiness of the ocean?
I think what you don't see is terrifying.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
And I think that it's about time that we, make people afraid of the water again. Jaws is terrifying. It was a terrifying movie, and one Colin and I really love. I mean, as a screenwriter, how can't you? And I don't know. I just think, what you don't see, especially in crime, and in the crime shows I've done, and again, my experience of these real cases, but also in your own life, everything we don't know, and the ocean's a perfect metaphor for that. And I remember that there's a little drunk line with Decker talking about that shark man of yours got your toesies, and it's something my sister and I used to say to each other swimming in a lake to scare each other. We'd say that, and it was stupid and cheesy, but. Because you'd think of these things, like I don't even know what they were, but something touching my toes or nibbling my toes where I couldn't see it terrified me. And this is literally a guy that comes up and nibbles your toes and then puts a line around your thing and drags you down to the bottom of the ocean. I mean, it's terrifying. But that's the long story short. Cool. The ocean is big and awesome and mysterious and dark and full of mystery, as Colin said. So it's a perfect place for a serial killer. And we hadn't even seen one, in that sort of setting before. And Colin and I thought we knew all the serial killers in America at the time. We thought it was novel and scary and dark and visually really horrific. And I think that's why we chose the ocean.
Well, it works really well.
Yeah, it came from that. It started with that idea, that eerie idea that someone, not something, is under the water. I mean, that was the kernel of the idea.
That's right.
So it wasn't the protagonist and let's build a mystery around or anything like that. It was that from the very beginning before it was anything else. Because
that was the first thing.
Interesting. Well, we love the script, and thanks for letting us bring it on the show. This is really our first kind of twisty, dark crime thriller feature on the show. So thanks for letting us bring it on, guys.
Hey,
I'd like to add we've never really done a proper full-fledged table read with this many people. I mean, we've read stuff out, but it's been a great experience for us. So it's been fantastic. We've been sitting listening to it, and I think you guys did a great job. And so it's been pretty rewarding for us just listening.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, guys, I want to say, thank you so much. You guys if any of you write, you must know how valuable it is to hear these things read out. And I mean, Colin and I have rolled this script over for the last few years, but the insight we get from just watching you guys, knowing how to read our script is amazing. It's like, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it.
Of course. That being said, was there anything that kind of surprised you on this read, either in like a way that surprised you positively, or in a way where you're like, oh, maybe I would change that on a second run through the script?
From my perspective, it was mostly positive. There were scenes where it really required the right read, and when you read it on the page for the 150th time, you're like, is this coming across? Like, does this seem flat? Is it clear that, she is feeling this way in this line? We can write as many times, like she looks distraught or she's embarrassed or whatever. But to hear the scene and to hear the line read the way, it should be read or could be read in some instances, I don't know. It was mostly positive, mostly saying, that scene works. That line is fine. That conveys all it needs to convey now that I hear someone say it without pause in their voice, etc.
Or
so it was
the opposite
from my perspective.
It's redundant. Yeah, or it's redundant in that I feel like, I got that way sooner than I would have got it on the page. It comes across one line earlier. So there were a few of those. Yeah. For me, I loved seeing how the three-hander scenes played. I think both Colin and I were kind of curious about, once we get Matt and Catherine and Decker all shoved together into the same room, and no one really seems to belong, but they're all thrust together in the same circumstance. And we were like, is it going to be funny or charming, confusing? So those were really help, and I liked those scenes quite a bit. All those scenes, once they get back to Decker's place, it sort of feels like a bit of a, it feels like a team suddenly, as mismatched as they are. Yeah. I like the way those scenes read. And I also actually want to say to the guy that read Matt, thanks so much, because we think a lot about Matt, and we've had, I think, the most criticisms on him out of all our criticisms in terms of characters and depth. Everyone says, some people like Matt. A lot of people say we should go deeper with him or do something more. He's half-baked, and I feel a lot better with the character after seeing him read this way, and I really appreciate your read.
No,
I forget your name. I'm sorry.
No, Timothy. Thank you so much for saying that. And I just speaking on Matt's character, I feel like if anybody who said that he should be half-baked, when I first read it, the character description, it was interesting because I was like, well, is he like this half-baked character? I mean, as an actor, you have to think about all these questions, but I feel like if you did make him half-baked throughout the entire script, it takes away from the sincerity and the seriousness of this script. And I feel like, it grounds every character, no matter how funny they can be. But he does have these, little comic relief moments, especially when him and Catherine get together. So I enjoyed Matt. I did enjoy Matt.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I mean, and that's everyone's read. I mean, Catherine, I can't tell you either how strong I thought that read was as well. I mean, I often worry about Catherine coming across as too passive or weak at times, and the read kind of quashed a lot of those fears, so I appreciate that as well. And I mean, you all really did a great job, and I think there's lots of insight. Colin and I were even chatting while we were watching you guys read. And it's funny because we're also thinking of making some changes soon. So watching this read is really good timing for us also.
Well, just remember when you guys get the script sold and you're casting it that you have had these amazing performances.
We can fly to Canada. Or
Mexico. Mexico, right. Well, we are running a bit short on time, gentlemen, but if you have any other questions for us, now would be a good time to ask.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, like I said, it's been a great experience, and I don't know how long you guys have been doing this for a while, and are all of you actors, I assume, and how was the experience for you, just diving in and doing table reads? And do you guys read for a couple times before? How is it from your perspective?
How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an actor, but I'm surrounded by a very, very talented group of them. And yeah, I mean, we've been doing this show. I think this is our 22nd episode, so we're having a good run. Yeah, I know. It's been fun. And I do send the script to these guys about a week before, and they give it a couple reads. But I'm always I feel so grateful, and I'm always astounded by all of your guys' talent every week. So it's fun, and it's a fun chance for these guys to, read. So it's been a really fun journey during the show.
And we always like to give props to Jeff because he always finds these really awesome scripts for us to read. And as actors, I think I could speak for everybody here. It's awesome getting to play a different role every week that typically we wouldn't be cast for. Yeah. So it's always really great. to find the scripts that he finds and to be privileged enough as an actor to read something this enthralling. And I will say this for the script, you guys, we were reading it today, and I said it during the break, that I felt like we were reading one of those like real-time like podcasts. I was so enthralled by this, I even missed one of my lines because I was like so encased in this script, and I really enjoyed it. So bravo to you guys.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Hey, thanks again, guys. You guys, and we're going to keep tabs on your show now. And what you're doing is, I mean, as well as for your own things, it's, I think, a tremendous service for screenwriters out there.
Well, tell your friends
so
about
keep
the
it
show.
up, please,
Thank
and
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we'll keep in touch, guys. We'll connect soon. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, and thanks for finding us.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
All right.
That is so wild they hadn't met.
I know.
That's
Yeah.
so
Cool.
Yeah, it's very
You wonder
impressive.
like the pride battle there.
I
When
know.
someone writes something, they're like, well, I should probably go back and change everything about it.
Well, guys, great read this week. Thanks so much. And for those listening and tuning in, thanks again for being back. We've got some exciting shows coming up. We're actually reading 2 workplace comedies the next 2 Fridays, so it's a nice, I think, relief from such a heavy script we read this week. Next week we're reading a fun kind of gym set comedy called The Deep Burn. Sort of got heavyweights, dodgeball type of feel. And then a comedy set in the NSA called Classified that's kind of fun.
Are they features or pilots?
These are both pilots, yeah. Nice half-hour pilots. So. To remind you guys, we do tape live every Friday, either at 9 a.m. for movies or 10 a.m. for pilots, so you can tune in and join. If not, if you're listening on the podcast, thank you. Don't forget to give us a rating. We've been getting more and more ratings, which is good. Been having more and more people reach out, so we're so grateful, and we're doing this, to benefit writers and benefit actors. So we're a missional show. That being said, if you want to reach out to me, you can on Twitter at Jeffrey C. Graham. I've been having some more people pitch me scripts, which is great. So continue to do so, guys. And for the rest of my cast, where can they find you online?
Thanks for listening, guys. I'm Roxy Stryer. You can find me at Roxy Stryer.
Hey, I'm Haley O'Connor on Twitter at Haley O'Connor. That's Haley with 2 Y's. If you don't use 2 Y's, you're not too wise.
I'm Andrew Guy. You can find me at Andrew Guy on Instagram and Twitter.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm Timothy Michael. You can find me on all social media platforms at I am Timothy Mike.
Hi guys, I'm Adrian Snow. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Adrian Snow.
And I am Lex Michael, all over social media at the Lex Michael.
And guys, really quickly, I do have to say these scripts came to us at a very, very heavily discounted price from ARA Printing in Burbank. That's on Magnolia in Burbank. They're the best in town. And if you go with the promo code Table Read, they'll give you a discount. So, that was our show, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week and have a wonderful week. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.